living water, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Yahusha, living water, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. I sing out with praise to you. Your name is beautiful to me, my King. I sing out with praise to you. My heart desires to honor you, my God. I sing out with praise to you, Yahusha, living Torah, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Yahusha, living Torah, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. I sing out with praise to you. Your name is beautiful to me, my King. I sing out with praise to you. My heart desires to honor you, my God. I sing out with praise to you, Yahusha, living Torah, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah.
Hear, O Yisrael, Yahuwah, our Elohim. Yahuwah is one, and you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commands hangs all the Torah and prophets. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hooah. Shabbat Shalom, Mishpaka. Welcome, welcome, beloved of Yahuwah. Glad everybody's here. Hope all of you had a nice week and ready to spend some time with Yahuwah now and Yahuwah's family. And we're going to get into some interesting studies this evening. But before we do, I want to say hello to a few people in the chat room. And let's see. I probably should put my greeting in here first. So Shabbat Shalom, beloved of Yahuwah. That's you, by the way. Did you know you were beloved by Yahuwah? If Yahuwah has declared you righteous, who can declare you unrighteous? And the answer to that is no one. Nobody, not one single person. Better dare do that. Okay. So let's go ahead and greet some folks and we'll get started quickly on this study this evening. Sister Sandra Broomston, Shema, glad you're here, Sister Sandra. Brother Levi Davis, glad you're here, brother. Shalom, Sharon, Shabbat Shalom, glad you're here, Sister Yahuwah, glad you're here, brother. Shalom, Shabbat. Jocelyn Stewart Bagley, Shabbat Shalom. Such a blessing and an honor to be here with family. May Yahuwah keep us all in the coming days. Glad you're here, Sister Jocelyn. Brother Jeremiah, glad you're here. Shabbat Shalom, family. Sister Peggy Russell, glad you're here, sister. Shabbat Shalom, family. Elijah MCC 321, Shabbat Shalom, brothers and sisters. Glad you're here, brother. Brother Raul Koto, glad you are here, brother. Sister Yami, glad you are here, sister. Shabbat Shalom, familia from Yami and Raul. Brother Isaiah Diaz from El Paso, glad you're here, my friend. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Mr. Three Jobs, glad you're here, brother John. Best place to be, Shabbat. Rose Wright, Shabbat Shalom. May everyone's Shabbat be a delight. Welcome, Sister Rose. Glad you're here. Brother Phil Dickey, Baruch haba b'shem Yahuwah. Glad you're here, Brother Phil. Brother Pete Anderson, glad you are here. Shabbat Shalom, brother. Carlton Rushing, glad you're here, brother. Shabbat Shalom. Ridge Hill Jilly, glad you are here, Sister Jill. Hallelujah. Shabbat Shalom. First snow of the season for this Shabbat. Lorana Maran. Glad you're here, sister. Shabbat Shalom. Joseph Essen. Glad you're here, brother. Shabbat Shalom. All right. as we have others trickling in this fine evening as Yahuwah's day of rest begins, we're going to go ahead and get started. But if I missed anyone, apologize for that. And you're all welcome here all the time, every time. And we appreciate your attendance and participation more than you'll ever know. Okay, so I was thinking about some questions that I had received recently in the last several weeks, and some conversations that we've been having, and it just kind of dawned on me, and I said, what, Yahuwah? I wonder if any of these people ever bothered to read their preface and their preface or their preface or their preface, however you pronounce it in your neck of the woods. It's the correspondence in the beginning of your favorite translation. And I just got the feeling that most of us don't. I mean, perhaps some of us never have. And so I thought, you know what? Maybe we need to talk about this a little bit, and especially for those of us who happen to study out of the BYNV. I think the preface in the front of the BYNV, and then the correspondence in the back, the information in the very back together would answer a lot of your questions that you have. And these questions are being asked over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And so I think for y'all to understand that you have this information and the answers to your questions right there in your hands, I think is something that we need to address and understand. Okay, and I think that you're going to find out that this is going to be a very, very interesting study as we continue through this evening. One thing we need to know for sure is that everything that we have our hands on as far as scriptures goes are translations nowadays. And you're not going to get anything that's inspired. And I know a lot of people hate to hear that. But the inspired text, the Hebrews inspired text, is long gone and has been long gone for quite a long time. And we're just not going to be able to see that or ever see it until possibly the millennium reign. But the translations we have is sufficient. They're not irrelevant or useless or anything. They are sufficient. But the thing that we have to understand and we have to watch out for is the bias influence in each translation. So we need to know who the writers are, the interpreters are. We need to understand who the translators are, and even who the editors are, and so that we can make a wise decision on which translation we choose to purchase and to study from and to read from. And the reason I'm saying this is because if you are, for instance, for an example, say you believe in monotheism, and then you go down to the neighborhood Christian bookstore and buy yourself a translation that's been interpreted and written and edited by a Trinitarian group, then you're going to be influenced or possibly confused by what you're going to read in that translation, because their bias is going to lean hard toward Trinitarianism. And a lot of even the verses within the scriptures will be changed to the point where it leans hard towards Trinitarianism. So we have to be aware of that. That's going on, and we need to be careful. Now, there's a lot of translations out there, and nowadays, and so it even becomes even more important to watch what you're buying. Be careful what you're purchasing. Now, the best translation that you could get is a Hebrew roots translation. In other words, a reverse translation from English back into the Hebrew. And so that the names, the original names of the Hebrew are restored into this translation, and so forth and so on, to give you hopefully a much better understanding of scriptures. I think it's probably about the best thing out there for us to learn from and to study out of in these times that we're living in. There's a whole lot of stuff out there that you need to really be careful of and stay away from. And I'm not going to get into all of that, but I think that most of you probably know that there's certain denominations that have their own translations. For an example, Lutheran. And so the Lutheran denomination has their German translation, and Lutheran was very biased against Revelations, James and Jude, and some other writings in the scriptures. And so those books were looked down on, and those epistles were looked down on. And so he carried that bias into his translations, just as an example. So if you are part of one of those denominations, religious denominations, or if you came out of one of those religious denominations that has their own translation and you're still using it, I would encourage you to put it up on the bookshelf and go get yourself a better translation. All right, so with that said, we're going to get started here. And I think what we'll do is we're going to go into the BYNV right off the get-go. I'm going to use the 2024 updated edition. So your edition, if you do have a BYNV, it's going to look something like this. Okay. Or it may look something like this. This is the new updated 2024 edition we're going to be looking out of. And there's some stuff in here, some verses that was really excited about when I saw the revision of some of the verses, and so I really like it. The 20 from 2020 up is fairly well written, I think, but the 2024 here has got some updates that are very exciting. But I'm not going to get into all of that. But get your hands on one of these. I encourage you to. And if you don't have one and you're skeptical, do what I did, okay? and I took an NASB, and I took an ESV. I took a New King James Version, and even a King James Version, and I took the Sefer from the Dr. Pedgin's publishing group, and I was comparing them, verse by verse, and I would just read out of the BYNV, and then when I hit something, I thought to myself, well, I never read that before, or wow, that's not in those other translations that I was used to. Then I would look it up and cross-reference it, and then I would say, oh, it is in there, and kind of shock myself, So to me, if you're skeptic and you're not familiar with a Hebrew reverse translation from American language or English language back into the Hebrew text, that's a good way of gaining confidence and trust in a reliable reverse translation from our language into the Hebrew. And it's the restoration of names. Hebrew names is the big difference that's in there. But when you use Hebrew text to translate from versus the Vulgate Latin or Greek manuscripts, where out of 3,000 New Testament manuscripts, Greek manuscripts, not one sentence is exact or agrees exactly. That's a little bit of an eyebrow raiser, a little frightening, if you ask me. Or into a German or any of the other intermittent type languages before you reach our language. It gets really messed up. So, it's best to just go from the Hebrew straight into our language, or from our language back into the Hebrew as a reverse translation, and skip over all those intermittent languages that really, really confuse and mingle too much languages with the other languages, and it all comes out not so much like it should have been originally. So, just beware of all that. So here we go. We're going to start here in today's study. Now, the BYNV doesn't have the Apocrypha in it, as some translations do. The Cipher does. I don't know if you all know what I'm talking about when I say the Cipher, but the Eth Cipher means just book. It looks like this, and it's pretty thick, heavy type thing, and it has the Apocrypha in it. The preface here in this book is extremely well written and very educating. And so if you have this and you've never read the preface in this book, you should. I mean, it's very powerful stuff, extremely well written as well. Okay, so here we go. The BYNV. If you have this, look through it with me. Like I said, I'm in the 2024 updated edition. If you don't have that, and you have the 2014 or the 2020 or something like that, it's going to be very similar. Okay, so don't worry. You're not going to be too far off. Just go ahead and go through it with me. So page 2 of the BYNV, it says Basora of Yahusha Nazarem version. That's what BYNV stands for. So the text sources consulted for translation and transliteration. Okay, so what does that mean right off the get-go? Well, translation is when you are translating words from one language into another language so that the people in the target language can understand what's being said. So it's like an interpreter, if you will. Like a language interpreter that, say, somebody's very fluent in Spanish and very fluent in English, they can interpret if somebody's speaking in Spanish and tell the person that's can only speak English what they're saying. Okay. And so transliteration is when there's certain words such as proper nouns or names that must carry over the same sound from the original language into the target language. And so these type of words are not allowed to be translated. In other words, they're not allowed to be changed. You can't change the sound of them because then nobody would know what you're talking about or who you're talking about or what the writing is all about or who it's about. So that would be a very huge handicap right off the get-go. And then it says the Masoretic text without the Niquid vowel, candidation symbols, the Greek received text with Hebrew words restored for consistency, both public domain. Transliteration revisions by Lou White. All rights reserved 2024. Okay, so then we go to page 3. And we're going to look at a few other translations too, the preface of a few other translations. So you're going to enjoy this study if you stick with me on this. It's going to start out slow, but it's going to pick up. So page 3 here has a little map of Israel, and it says, and then it has like a flow chart or lineage of Abraham's seed, which is very interesting. And then it has to present it to available on Kindle at Amazon. Besora is Hebrew for message, testimony, or report. Okay, and Yahusha is Hebrew for I am your deliverer. So Yah, our deliverer, or in first person, that only Yahuwah can really say, I am your deliverer. That would be first person. Then it has a quote out of Matthew or Matityahu 24:14. And this Basora of the rain shall be proclaimed in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end shall come. Prepare the wineskin of your heart to receive new wine. Men's teachings are the old wine. Okay, and so here is the map that I was talking about on here, but what's I think is really interesting is this right over here. See Abraham? He had Ishmael by Hagar, the Egyptian, the slave woman. And then his wife, Sarah, had Yitzhak or Isaac. And then he had another wife, Keturah, and had 6 other sons from her. Now, scripture does talk about this. And some people, they freak out on this and say, oh, that's not in scripture. Yes, it is. And but going back over to Sarah, to Isaac, we have Jacob here, whose name was changed to Israel. And then we have his twin brother Esau, who became an Edomite, came from Esau. And out of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, came the 12 tribes. You see that? And then, of course, out of the tribe of Yehuda or Judah came David, King David, and then the Messiah, Yahusha, out of the tribe of Yehuda. But notice over here, this is very interesting. Over here, Joseph. You see Joseph? Look at the split in this tribe, Manasseh and Ephraim, splitting the tribe of Joseph. And so here is extremely important thing to understand is that the tribe of Joseph, the land covenant for Joseph was allocated to Joseph was split in half, and a portion was given to Manasseh, and another portion of Joseph's territory was given to Ephraim. Okay, and we have to to understand this one thing. I'm going to show you a map. Let me see if I can find it. I need to show you this map. If I can find it, I'll show it to you. At least I thought I had this map. Yeah, this map would help a lot if I could find it. And I think I did. Hang on a minute. Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. Oh, I don't think that's it. Well, let me see. If I can't find it, I'll use that other one. I was looking for this one distinct map. And I wasn't planning. I mean, I really don't have anything planned here. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of like flying off the seat of my pants here. So you're going to have to bear with me. This is live broadcast. Nothing's planned here. So it's coming at you like I'm getting it. So no script, no planning, no anything. This is all live. So bear with me. That's what happens when you have a live broadcast. Okay, so this will help a little bit for you to understand what I'm saying. It's not the map I was looking for, but I'll use it. So we move on from here real quick. All right, here it is. Okay, so yeah, this ain't what I was hoping to find for you, but what was going on here was Manasseh was right up in this area, and then across the Jordan it was over here as well. So half of Manasseh was on each side of the Jordan River, and then Ephraim was right here, like right in here somewhere. And then Dan, the tribe of Dan, was right here on the seashore, right up above Philistine. Okay. And Dan was always warring with the Philistines. Samson came from the tribe of Dan. He was always fighting with the Philistines. And so what happened was the Philistines finally drove Dan out, and Dan migrated up north, ended up here in this area, which shows on this little map here in the BYNV. Okay, so in this little map, it shows Dan way up here at the top. See him way up here? If you see that. But originally he wasn't way up there. Okay. And so then Manasseh, this is extremely important to understand. Actually, then came down and took over that territory of Dan's. Okay, and it became part of Manasseh. All right, and Manasseh's territory. And Ephraim, too, I think, moved over there and sucked up a little bit of it as well. So that's what the whole point I'm trying to make here in what I was showing you. So, and that'll become important here in a little while. Well, actually, I probably should just continue on showing you what I'm talking about. So in Revelations, kind of getting off on a tangent here, but it is what it is. So, yeah. Hang on a second. Let me get this set up right. Okay, so Revelation 7, starting in 4, it starts naming the 144,000, and it has 12 tribes, and it lists 12, but it doesn't mention Dan. Okay, if you go down through there and look at them, you'll see that there was 12,000 from Yehuda, 12,000 from Reuben, 12,000 from Gad, from 12,000 from Asher, 12,000 from Naphtali, 12,000 from Manasseh. There's Manasseh. And then 12,000 from Simon, and 12,000 from Levites, 12,000 from Issachar, 12,000 from Zebulun, and then 12,000 from Joseph, and then 12,000 from Benjamin. So if you say, oh, what happened to Ephraim and what happened to Dan? They're not going to; those people aren't going to be in the reign of Yahuwah, and that's not true. There's some misconception on understanding of what's going on here. Now, remember the map in the beginning of the BYNV where it showed you that Joseph's territory was split between Manasseh and Ephraim, his two sons. Okay, so Manasseh here and Joseph are both listed. Okay, and so what's going on there? Okay, so in this situation, because there's not three territories, okay, Joseph was split in half. So in this listing here in Revelation 7, Manasseh is representing Dan, because Manasseh absorbed Dan when Dan fled. They absorbed that territory right up above Philistine on the Mediterranean Sea coast. And then Joseph is representing Ephraim and Manasseh. See, so they're Joseph. Okay, that's why that's listed like that. And a lot of people say, "Oh, it ain't true. That's just blah 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 blah." People are. And in order to prove what I just said, we're to go over to Daniel. I mean, not Daniel, Ezekiel. So go to Ezekiel, and we will go to chapter 48 in Ezekiel. And this is speaking of the new city. And so when we go into the new city here, we see that the land which you divide by lot is an inheritance among the tribes of Israel, and these are their portions, declares Master Yahuwah. Okay, so look at this. The gates of the city, according to the names of Israel, on the north, there were three gates: Reuben, Yehuda, and the Levites. And on the east side were Joseph, Benjamin, and Dan. There's Dan. And then Simon, Issachar, and Zebulun. And then on the west side, Gad, Asher, and Naphtali. Oh, okay. Hey, wait a minute now. Dan's listed, and so's Joseph on the new city. So where's Manasseh and Ephraim? Manasseh and Ephraim is Joseph. And it lists Dan here, letting you know that Dan is going to inherit their territory back, their original territory that they lost to the Phoenicians. Check it out yourself. So that's why this is so important to understand this flow chart. And you're blessed to have this in here. If you understand what you're looking at, you will see as you go down through Israel or Jacob to Joseph, you see the split in Joseph's territory to Manasseh and Ephraim. So Joseph is Manasseh and Ephraim, or Manasseh and Ephraim is Joseph. Either way you want to say it. But lo and behold, there's little Dan. Okay. Now, Dan had problems. There's no doubt about that. Up here, look at the top up here. See where Dan is? That's because he fled from down here, just north of the Gaza Strip. The Palestinians persecuted them, and they ran up to here. Okay. And then they migrated from there. But they will get their land back in the eternal reign that we just read in Ezekiel 48. Clearly, that Dan's mentioned. Okay. So, very interesting. Got off on that tangent. Let's get back on course now. I hope you all picking up what I'm laying down on that. I just thought this very fortunate that shows in here, and we can get that out of it if we have the understanding of what we're looking at. So then on page 4, it says, "Therefore my people shall know my name in that day, for I am the one who is speaking. See, it is I." And this is a quote from Yashayahu, which is Isaiah, but it's been reverse translated back into the Hebrew as Yashayahu. Notice Yahu is Yahuwah's name. It's the first 3 letters of Yahuwah's name. Okay, and that's found in Isaiah 52:6. And so here we find initials, if you will. And which is saying that the speaker is the Aleph and the Tav, which are Yahuwah's initials. And so in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, it is the Aleph, which we see here, and the Tav, which is way down here. Almost looks like an X, don't it? But some people say it looks like a cross that fell over. So it says, "You search the scriptures because you think you possess everlasting life in them. And these are the ones that bear witness of me." That's a quote from Yehukanan 5:39. And that's John, has been reverse translated back into the Hebrew as Yehukanan. And it says, "This Basora," and in this context means message, "is not about religion or mythology. It is true history of why and how mankind keeps failing. There is a message kept for each new generation that will hear it. A sovereign is coming to administrate paradise on earth. Prepare for him. The authentic name exposes the counterfeit. The name is the stone the builders rejected. You need to know his name. He spoke through his servants, the prophets, and finally manifested himself in the form of a man and dwelled among us. In Hebrews 1, unrecognized for who he is. His Nazarene are here to reveal the truth to the world. And these are those who guard the commands, who guard his commands and hold to the testimony, or the Basora in this context. It would be, Basora would be testimony of Yahusha, the Messiah. So his main message was repent, for the reign of Yahuwah draws near. The next level in restoration is in your hands. And that's the BYNB here. The new wine. Get ready to stretch your new wine skin. And then it goes down here and talks a little bit about replacement theology, if you will, the church, which, is what a lot of translations are based on, is replacement theology or dispensationalism, okay, or supersessionism, if you will. It says our Hebrew roots overcome the dispensational heresies and provide understanding of the literal and abstract levels of the Hebrew language, the Hebrew culture, the Hebrew alphabet, the Hebrew customs. All that is very important to understand. This is the idiomatic meaning of words is gleaned from their context. The physical and spiritual level are expressed in terms like wool and linen. Accuracy with understanding will steer hearts. Your word, your name above all. And then we have a glimpse of the Paleo-Hebrew name right here above this menorah. This would be a menorah representing the light of the world. And there's his name, Yad, He, Ua, He. What they would call the tetragrammaton. Okay, so the Nazarene version, edited by Nazarene, True Name Restored, Torah Institute, Louisville, Kentucky, TorahZone.net. Okay, so then we go into the table of context. You should when you go to try to purchase, and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to go buy me some scriptures or Bible. This is what you need to do. You need to open it up and read the preface in the book. If you have to get to understand what's going on. And, most of them will let you know stuff that maybe would blow your marbles. And so maybe you should be sitting down at a table when you go over the preface in some of these translations that you're thinking about buying. So this goes on into the table context, and it has Tanakh here. Tanakh. A lot of people say, well, what's Tanakh mean? And it's like it's written right there in your BYNV. Have you looked at it? So it's an acronym. So the Tanakh is an acronym. So this acronym stands for Torah, Tablium, and Kethubium. Kethubim, or in our language, it would be instruction, prophets, and writings. And those words can be translated because they're not proper nouns or names. And so words can be translated, but names and proper nouns cannot. They must be transliterated. They can't change. The sound of them cannot change. They have to be as accurate as possible, no matter what language they're being taken into. Okay, so the first word, Torah, is often associated with the first 5 books of Yahuwah's word. Torah simply means, in Hebrew, instruction. Teruth means instructions, plural. So Torah can also mean teaching, and it's always misinterpreted as law. So everybody, they try to tell you it's the law, and it's a misinterpretation of the word, Hebrew word. Okay, so this is all written down here in your PYNV. See right there below the table of contacts? You know, it's all laid right out there for you. So when you ask that question, all you got to do is look on page 5, and it's answered for you. You got the answer. So now it has the table of contacts, and it lists it gives you the Hebrew name, okay, but it also gives you the false name or the replacement name, so that you can get yourself familiar with the Hebrew, the true Hebrew name is. So Bereshith means in the beginning, because the Hebrew names have to have a meaning attached to it, or it's not Hebrew. And so Bereshith in the beginning would be Genesis. Known as Genesis for most English translations. Now Genesis is a total replacement. That's not even close to Bereshith, is it? No, it's not even close, man. So they can't do that. They're not allowed to say, well, we speak English, so you say Genesis. That's a lie. They're lying to you. That's probably the biggest lie Satan has going, that a name can be translated. That's one of the biggest lies out there. It don't matter if you speak English, Russian, Brazilian, Spanish. It don't matter. It's still Bereshith. So then it goes on down. Shemuth is Exodus, and it just keeps on going down there, giving you the Hebrew names as it goes down in there. It just continues on. It gets to Isaiah, and it's Yashayahu. Now, is Isaiah sound anything like Yashayahu? No. So they didn't transliterate that name because it has to sound like Yashayahu. So what did they do? No, they didn't. They did not translate it into the English language, folks. They replaced it with an English name. You can't translate a name. So they replaced it, and they just told you, hey, we speak English, so this is how we say Yashayahu, Isaiah. That's false. That's not true whatsoever. So now you can see that, the importance of a reverse translation. So you get to understand what it was in Hebrew. So do you want to learn how to say the true Hebrew name? Or do you just want to use a replacement, what they felt like renaming these people, and use their replacement name? Because I'll tell you what, if Isaiah was alive right now and you screamed Isaiah out to try to get his attention, I'm pretty sure he'd just keep walking, because his name isn't Isaiah, it's Yashayahu. So if you would say Yashayahu, he'd stop and turn around and see who was calling him, trying to get his attention. So Jeremiah, same, Yirmiyahu, don't sound anything like that. Yechezkel, Ezekiel, that sounds a little bit, Hushah, Hosea, a little bit more sounding, but still off. And they're not allowed to do that. It's got to sound exactly the same. Okay, so it goes on and on and on through there like that. And so that table of context there will help you to learn the true Hebrew names that have been replaced with most translations. So that's very, very revealing, very helpful. Then it goes on and says Nazarene writings, which is what they call the New Testament. Is really the Nazarene writings, the first century Nazarene. It's their memoirs of as they remember things that they did and what happened while they were walking on the earth with Yahusha. And so it's their memories that they wrote down. And so he named them the Nazarene, which are branches of his teaching. He being the vine, they're the branches, right? So he would have said something like Aniha, Agafen, Ataha, Nazarene. And I know my dialect is horrible, but basically, I am the vine, you are the branches. So this would be the Nazarene writings. What they call the New Testament. There's no New Testament and there's no Old Testament. Okay. There is, we could go as far as saying there's an Old Covenant and a New Covenant. We could say that, or no covenant and a renewed covenant. We could say that, but there's no Old Testament and New Testament. That's made up stuff as well. Why? Because these dispensationalism people, through their theological framework, they try to divide history into these multiple ages, okay, in which they claim that Elohim interacts with humanity in different ways, but they ignore any spiritual type understanding at all. They just cling to the literal, okay, and they don't believe in covenant, okay. So they don't believe in the everlasting covenant or any covenants between Yahuwah and his people Israel. Why? Because they try to hold a distinction between Israel and the church, okay, and they also try to hold to the falsehood that Christians are exempt, okay, or not bound to obedience of the Ten Commandments. Somehow they're relieved of having to obey Yahuwah, and they can still be delivered. So it's just all crazy stuff. But anyway, it goes down through here. It says note Brit Kadasha, which would be Brit Kadasha, New Covenant, in the beginning explained. And so it says a note, the writer only refers to himself as the Talmud, whom Yahusha loved. And that person is the brother of Miriam and Martha Eleazar, also traditionally referred to as Lazarus. Okay. So the Brit Kadasha, some people call it that, meaning new covenant or even renewed covenant. And it goes down. John is really Yehukanan. Jude is Yehuda. James is a very interesting replacement because it's Yaakov or Yaakub, okay, which is the Hebrew, and they replaced that with James, which is like totally way out of line. Because, everywhere else they replaced that with Jacob. But here in this Nazarene writing, they replaced it with James. Why? because they wanted to esteem King James, who authorized this, the King James Version. So King James authorized the King James Version. Okay, and so they wanted to esteem him, and so and make him happy. So probably so he wouldn't behead him, I imagine. They took Yahusha's half brother Jacob name totally out and put King James' name in there as the writer of that epistle. To me, it's mind blowing. Okay, and so Peter's Kepha, Matthew is Mattatyahu. They ain't even close. Mark's the same, Luke's the same, Romans is the same. All the way down through there. There's really nothing. Now Hebrews is Eber being the original the person who spoke the Ebrith language. So it's really the Hebrew's not a people, but a language. It's really, in Hebrew, it's Ebram. And then again, John is Yahu, Yahukanan, Yahukanan, okay? All right, and then it says, gives us a quote from Psalms 102:18. It says, "This is written for a generation to come, so that a people to be created praise Yah." So praise Yah is hallelujah in Hebrew. So that's how you would say that. So praise Yah would be hallelujah. Okay. All right. So now it starts giving us some very powerful information from this point on. I'm on page 6. Interestingly, there were no J's in the original Hebrew, no W's either in the original Hebrew. Still ain't. There still isn't no J or W in Hebrew, or V. So, I'll begin reading this now, and y'all read along. I'll try to stop and elaborate at certain points here, but this is where it gets real interesting, and this will answer a ton of your questions that I hear people asking all the time, and I scratch my head and I say, why are they asking that? We've went over that a million times. And all you have to do is get used to referring to what's been given to you here freely in this preface. The Nazarene writings in this version are arranged in an order that better presents Yahusha as the Torah teacher to the next generation. The accuracy and clarity of the message or Basora will equip us to be able to detect counterfeit ideas as well as deceivers. In the beginning, Bereshith is announced a second time, since the Nazarene writings reflect the light and announce the coming of the light. His followers warn us of a coming falling away from the belief. So what's this telling us? Well, it's telling us that the reason why Yahukanan is the first one listed in the Nazarene writings, and we're not used to that, right? So it's normally Matthew, Luke, Mark, and John, or Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. John's the last one. But what the BYNV here is suggesting is, and I'll show it to you, that, and let me make something very clear right now. All right. And that's, I have no investment in the BYNV. I'm not getting anything out of doing this. But you see right there, Yehukanan. Look at what it says right there in Yehukanan. Look what it says. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. See that? And so that should be the first book in the Netzarim writings because it's announcing the beginning, okay, a second time to us. See that? And so if you look at, for instance, if we look at Genesis and compare it to Bereshith, right there where it starts, it says, in the beginning, Elohim created Aleph Tau, the Shemayim, and Aleph Tau. That means it's Yahuwah talking, the Aretz. See that? So if the Tanakh starts in the beginning, doesn't it make perfect sense that the Netzarim writing should start with in the beginning as it's being announced the second time? See that? That's what. So the order is different than other translations, is what it's saying. There is also a hint of Paul's writings of a future standing away or an apostasy, which occurs in the last days. The Netzarim of today are standing away from the false teachers and the strongholds they have imprisoned so many minds within. His first followers, the first Netzarim, were trained in Torah observance from their childhood. But in Yahusha, they met the living, breathing Torah, the instructor himself. Torah means instruction, and Torah instructs us in how to love Yahuwah and our neighbor. Yahusha's living obedience to the living words is our best guide to follow him and walk as he walked. The traditional mindset repeals obedience. Yeah, the dispensationalists or replacement theologists, they definitely repeal obedience. Matter of fact, they teach that Christians or their followers are not bound by the Ten Commandments. They're totally relieved of obedience, period. Matter of fact, they say the entire Tanakh is irrelevant and been abolished. So Yahusha's living obedience to the living words is our best guide to follow him and walk as he walked. The traditional mindset repeals obedience, so hopefully by this new arrangement of these memoirs, new readers will first be warned against falling away from the Torah. The first followers were servants, and they want to teach you many things traditional teachers want you to disregard. Open your heart and listen to their words. They are words of love. With each generation, knowledge increases concerning what was blocked or intentionally withheld. The poisoned waters are being purified with the truth. More light is to come as the time of the end approaches for the inhabitants of the Aretz. And the Aretz would be Hebrew for earth. So replacement theology is what we've been talking about a little bit. Defiles the everlasting covenant and the Torah because they don't believe in the covenant. They don't believe in the covenant between Yahuwah and Israel. The Christian concept known as replacement theology or supersessionism proposes a new covenant supersedes the Arabic, and the Mosaic, and the Daoic covenants. And the moral teachings that define sin are altered. After the destruction of the temple in 70 CE or AD, a tax was imposed on the Yehudim. So very quickly, the followers of Yahushua began to meet separately. They were still too familiar and so were treated the same and taxed. To avoid this tax, alterations were adopted so slowly, almost all similarities between the Yehudim and the growing number of Gentile followers of Yahushua vanished. As we know, even their identity came to be mostly derived from Greek roots. The Hebrew roots were severed and consciously denied. You can research this early pressure to break into two factions by researching the Jewish text called Viscus Judaicus. This cause is the major reason for the early breach, and it is easily overlooked by today's teachers. The people of Yisrael are now considered to be replaced by Christian believers who inherit all the promises made to Yisrael. They usurp the title Yisrael under the label spiritual Yisrael. Engrafting to Yisrael through the everlasting covenant is regarded as heresy. Reading Jeremiah or Yirmiyahu, chapter 31, quickly reveals the error of this thinking. He speaks of the restoration of Yisrael. So you would go and read Jeremiah 31 to debunk this false teaching. The foundation of our path must be the word of Yahuwah, and yet traditions grew up like weeds that severed all the Hebrew roots. The pagan priesthood at Rome slowly transferred into the Shemara, or mixed beasts we see but do not perceive. One man, Constantine the First, that's that guy right over my shoulder here, wanted outlaw, Constantine the First. He's wanted for sending a lot of people to the lake of fire. Murderer. He altered the Ten Commandments by honoring Apollo, the Mithras, Apollo or Mithras, instead of Yahuwah, the Creator. His edict in 321 AD made Sun's Day the weekly day of rest. So he changed the Torah. The sign of the everlasting covenant is the Shabbat. Keeping Yom Shabbat is the sign that you belong to Yahuwah. You know, you keep Yom Shabbat, that's a sign. That means you belong to Yahuwah. Was considered Judaizing, and anyone resting on the proper day known as the Shabbat at the Council of Laodicea, 365 CE, was labeled a heretic. Obeying the Shabbat command marked a person as a heretic. Anathema, meaning worthy of death. The fourth commandment, the sign between Yahuwah and his people forever, was directly attacked, defiled, and changed. Rome was the funding and enforcement, and Alexandria was the doctrinal center of the replacement theology. The Didascalia, or the Catholical school of Alexandria, severed all Hebrew roots through men who were harshly anti-Semitic, called the Church Fathers. Their allegorical interpretations made it appear that Christians replaced Yesharal and inherited all the promises without any obligation to obey Torah. And it says Torah of Yahuwah dash Torah of Moshe. The Torah was given to Moshe to teach the congregation and the world not yet born. It is mentioned in Acts 15 in the decisions reached by the Ruach HaKodesh, Yaakov, Kepha, and the chief supports of the Nazarene. The Gentiles engrafting into the covenant were to begin with 4 main points and continue to learn the Torah of Yahuwah, since their parents had been idolaters. Notice this idea is expressed in Acts 15. The Torah, or Moshe, is read in the congregations every Shabbat. Acts 15:21 says, "For from ancient generations Moses or Moshe has in every city those proclaiming him, being read in the congregations every Shabbat." Okay, so they were told to stop going back into the pagan temples and performing the pagan rituals and having sex with the pagan prostitutes and eating meat that was sacrificed to idols and drinking blood, so forth and so on. And they were also urged to go to the synagogues on every Shabbat and listen to the Torah or Moshe read in the congregation so they could learn more about Yahuwah and what Yahuwah's will is. That's what that was talking about. And of course, they've totally blew that up, and they think it means something else. They teach it means something to the fact that Christians don't have to do anything. It says, why the earth will be burned. Matthew, or Matthew 24 matches the message of Yashayahu, Isaiah. They changed it to Isaiah 24. So it's easy, Matthew 24 and Isaiah 24, okay? But notice this passage in particular in Yashayahu 24, verse 5 and 6. For the earth has been defiled under its inhabitants because they have transgressed the truth, changed the law, broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore, a curse shall consume the earth, and those who dwell in it be punished. Therefore, the inhabitants of the earth shall be burned, and few men shall be left. This is one of many warnings, such as Malachi 4, verse 4 through 6, and Joel, or Yoel, chapters 2 and 3. This is the reason the earth will be burned in the day of judgment. The sacraments have been used to ensnare hearts through empty deceit and are the traditions of men, spoken about in Colossians 2. The renewed covenant, or the new covenant, if you will, the renewed covenant is Mashiach in you. That's also, and this ain't in there, this is just me now, that's also the secret of the ages. Mashiach in you. That's what I call it, the secret of the ages. The promised Paraklita, meaning helper in Hebrew, it's Paraklita, that comes into our heart to inscribe the Torah on our hearts. Yahusha circumcises the hearts and minds of his followers, enabling them to receive his mind, to become like-minded with your Messiah, and to see their teacher's point of view. The Nazarene, the original followers of Yahusha, realized he had come into them as he had promised. The first fruits, those obeying the Torah of Yahuwah and holding to the testimony of Yahusha are the first fruits and the target of the dragon. We identify a tree by its fruit. So if we work out who has been the doctrinal source of the persecuting, we will find the servant of the dragon, called the false prophet. And then it refers us to Yashayahu or Isaiah 13:9, 13:11, 26:21, 66:24, and Micah 5:15, and Zephaniah 1:2-18, and Jeremiah 23:36. Speaking of the first fruits. So then it goes on to page 8. So already we've received a ton of information that answers a ton of questions, but it even gets better. Just wait till we get to the name. It's going to let you realize all kinds of stuff about the name in here and how you can prove to people how you know that his true name is Yahuwah. Oh, wow. It's in here? Yes, it is. We're going to get there. So then goes on to say the Torah of Yahuwah. And it says, the Torah of Yahuwah, instructions of Yahuwah, right, is nothing less than the Ten Debarim. It's a standalone covenant. It's the everlasting covenant. Okay, it has not been abolished. It is not irrelevant. Okay, it is not something that was only for the Jews back in the day, and the Christians don't have to listen to the Torah of Yahuwah anymore. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So the Torah of Yahuwah, I am Yahuwah your Elohim, have no other before my face. You do not bow to images. You do not cast the name of Yahuwah your Elohim to ruin. Remember Shabbat, to keep it Kadesh. Kadesh means set apart. You respect your father and your mother. You do not murder. You do not break wedlock. You do not steal. You do not carry a malicious witness against your neighbor. You do not covet your neighbor's wife, house, field, servants, animals, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Summed up in the whole body of this text, a new commandment, love one another. So it says, Yahuwah searches minds and hearts to find those with understanding who are seeking him. He knows your heart. Do you know his? This is very interesting. So Yahuwah searches minds and hearts to find those with understanding who are seeking him. Okay, so we can take and look at Psalms. Go to Psalms 14 on this. I really like this. I'm on pause right here and just look at this. So Psalms 14. Oh, don't worry. We're going to get deep. You ain't heard nothing yet. All right. Psalms 14, 1 and 2. It says, the fool has said in his heart, there is no Elohim. They have done corruptly. They have done an abominable deed. There is no one who does good. Yahuwah looked down from the Shemayim on the sons of mankind to see if there is a wise one seeking Yahuwah. Wow. Powerful stuff right there. Now look at John. Go to Yehukanan. Will be the very first book in the Nazarene writings. In the beginning, right? So Yehukanan 4, not too far into the book. Chapter 4, 22 and 24 says, 22 through 24, you worship what you do not know. We worship what we know. This is Yahusha speaking, by the way. Because the deliverance is of the Yehudim. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and truth, or Ruach in truth. For the Father also seeks such to worship him. Yahuwah is searching and seeking out those seeks such to worship him, those who worship in spirit and truth, ruach and truth. Elohim is ruach. He's a spirit, and he's can't see him. He's invisible. Elohim is ruach, and those who worship him need to worship in ruach and truth. By reading this reverse translation, you're going to learn what that means. You will learn what it means to worship Yahuwah in spirit or ruach in truth. It's hard to get that understanding in a regular English translation. Extremely hard. He knows your heart. Do you know his? That's what a lot of people like to say. Oh, yeah, I'm a sinner. I go out and drink and whore and party and take drugs and do whatever I want. But Yahuwah knows my heart. He knows I'm a good person. He doesn't care what I call him. I can call him anything I want to. And he doesn't care. He doesn't mind. He knows my heart. He knows inside my heart I'm a good person. Oh, yeah? Well, let's see what Jeremiah or Yirmiyahu 17 says about that. So go to Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah 17. It says in verse 9 and 10, it says, the heart is crooked above all. Above all? The heart is crooked above all? Whoa, man, it must be pretty wicked. If it's crooked above all, there sure is a lot of wicked things out there. And desperately sick. Who shall know it? I, Yahuwah, search the heart. I try the courage and give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his deeds. Wow. Yeah, that should be putting some shivers up your spine there, buddy. So then goes on and says, has the Shema written in here? And you ever say, well, where's the Shema written? Where's that at, Brother Mark? Well, look in your page 8. Okay, it tells you it's in Deuteronomy 6, 4 through 9. Hear, O Yisharal, Yahuwah our Elohim, Yahuwah is one. And you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being, with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them on your children. And you shall speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. And shall bind them as a sign on your hands, and they shall be as fronts between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. And then right after that, it recites Psalms 138:2. It gives you the reference to Psalms 138:2, which is very powerful witnessing tool. I bow myself toward your set-apart Hekel's temple, and give thanks to your name for your kindness and for your truth. For you have made great your word, your name above all. Then it says, copy and post this page at each doorpost of your house, of your home. Wow. So then 9 goes on and says, shows you the Paleo Hebrew writing the name of the creator over here with a key. See the names making up the key, the end of the key there. And there's Yad Hey, Ua Hey, spells Yahuwah in Paleo Hebrew. And it says, Yahuwah bless you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahuwah lift up his face upon you and give you peace. Thus they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I myself shall bless them. Numbers 6, 24 through 27. So there you go. There is the priestly blessing right there in the preface of your BYNV, page 9. If you're everybody says, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? There it is. Now you know where to quick reference to go to it and find it. So there's quick reference to the Ten Commandments. Quick reference to the Shema. Quick reference to Psalms 138:2. A quick reference to the priestly blessings in Numbers 6:24-27. Right there in your hands. Very quick. Torah Institute. Yahuwah, Yahusha, Mezerites. Means traditionalists. Corrupted the language to hide the name. And so they put all these little dots and points and all these marks in there to try to deter people from saying the true name. Instead of saying Yahuwah, they're trying to direct people into saying Adonai. Okay. And how can it be that so few know your name? They corrupted the vowels. So Hebrew or Ebereth is read from right to left. It's not from left to right like we read, but from right to left. It's backwards. Okay. And it's spelt Yad Hey Ua Hey. Okay. And look at this. There's even a little letter chart here given to you. See that? Boy, look at that, man. I can't. There you go. Letter chart. See that? It shows you all the Hebrew letters, corresponding numbers, even Aramaic and Latin. Right there. Page 9. Quick reference. And then it says, which is more correct? Jeho, Yeho, or Yahu? We could thank the Mizrahites, who are the tradition keepers from the 7th to the 11th century, for inventing vowel points to guide all Yehudim in the uniform pronunciation of Hebrew words. This man-made system secured one major objective: to keep the pronunciation of the name Yahuwah from everyone's lips. Yahusha is in his Nazarene, and he reveals the name and reveals the secrets that have been invented by men to keep it held back. Many of our strongholds involve human traditions, and there are many more strongholds we must overthrow. Okay, so now we're going to get in some really deep stuff here about the name. So on page 10, there's an introduction that says, this translation, speaking of the BYNV, transliterates many original Hebrew words. The Hebrew name of our Creator is preserved. It's written originally by the prophets, Yahuwah and Yahusha. A restoration is taking place over the whole earth. This is another step forward. The key of knowledge has been withheld in other versions or translations. That's being withheld in other translations is being revealed again, shown on the stone and the coin at the left. It is the name turning the world upside down, quoting Acts 17:6. So right here on page 10 here, it shows some relics with the name on it. Okay, so you can see that coin there, Persian coin in the captives district, has Yahoo on it, the first 3 letters of his name. And then there's the Arch of Titus showing the menorah being taken away after they pummeled the Second Temple in 70 AD. Then there's a stone there found in Samaria. Stones cry out the tetragrammaton, there, Yad Hey Ua Hey. Becoming a servant means you put others' needs above your own. And so I'm going to show you some artifacts here real quick. And Yeah. So let me see. I'd have to do a share screen. This is kind of important information here. So let me see. We'll go right up here. I'll share screen this. Okay, so here we go. This is the Arch of Titus, if you will. The Arch of Titus is on the inside of this arch. All right. This inscription here just says something like, to Titus from the Senate and the people of Rome, or something to that effect, But this is what it actually looks like. They'd march through this arch on their way in or out of Rome. Okay, so let me see. So there it is again. Now here's what's on the inside. This is a cleaned up picture, Victoria of it, but you can see it a little bit better. But what this is like the Roman army, and they're carrying away the spoils of the war with the Yehudim in 70 AD. And here's the golden menorah here, the golden menorah. And these things right here, this thing here, and this one, those are they're shovels, is what they are. And so they were the shovels that were used in the altar to remove the ashes and stuff out of the altar. Okay. And then the other right here, these things right here, and this thing here, that's golden trumpets that they took out of there. They're golden trumpets. And then this right here, the square deal right here, was the showbread table of the showbread. And they're marching off with all that stuff. Okay. So this is the actual image on the Ark of Titus, what it looks like, the carving. This is more artifacts with Paleo-Hebrew script. It's called the Moabite stone, what you were just looking at. And it's in Paleo-Hebrew. We're calling it a West Semitic language, but it's Paleo-Hebrew. 34 lines written on here. What this is a story about this king defeating the Israelites in their Elohim, Yahuwah, is what it's talking about on this stone. It's called the Moabite stone. This stuff's all in museums around the world, Here's a coin. This is a Persian coin found in the captives district. And this is Yahuwah on his chariot with wheels and wings, and This right up here is the paleo lettering of his first three letters of his name would be Yod, Hey, Ua. So Yahoo. And so this is found quite a few times. And so it's nobody argues with Yahoo anymore. It's what comes after that's what they're in disagreement with, and they don't seem to be able to come into any type of agreement with what comes after, but it's pretty simple when you start looking at other evidence, such as what's written in Flavius Josephus' books. So he talks about the war of the Yehudim and the destruction of the temple and all that stuff in here. And Tower of Antonio that was connected to it. Here, I'll show you here in just a second. This is that Moabite stone again. And they're showing you right there. You can't really see it that well. But right where that circle is Yod Hey Ua Hey. His full name is actually written out on that stone. Here's another stone they found. It's got his name written on it, Yod Hey Ua Hey, written on this stone. Here in the BYNV, it says, the stones cry out, the tetragrammaton. Here's that Moabite stone again. Now, this is the Los Lunas stone before it was desecrated. And here we can see the 10 Commandments written on this stone. Name of Yahuwah written on here. That's in New Mexico, Los Lunas, New Mexico. This is probably what they feel is the oldest stone with the 10 Commandments, but this one's a little bit different, okay, in that it is was found in Samarita area there, I think around Mount Gerizim, I think. And this stone is kind of unique in the fact that not only do they believe this is the oldest of this Paleo-Hebrew written on a stone in existence, the entire 10 Commandments. But interestingly, the third commandment on this stone was removed. And so where it says, you do not cast the name of Yahuwah your Elohim to ruin, was removed. And then they replaced it with, you worship Yahuwah your Elohim at Mount Gerizim instead of in Jerusalem at Mount Moriah. This thing sold in auction for $5 million. It weighs about 115 pounds. So 115-pound stone with the Samaritan 10 Commandments on it, where they replaced the third command, saying the place to worship Yahuwah is on Mount Gerizim. And it's sold for $5 million in auction. More Paleo-Hebrew. So here's on the Moabite stone, or they call it the Mesha steel, coming out of 9th century BC is where that where they date it back to. And it actually has the tetragrammaton on it. You can see it right here now. Remember, it had that circle. Now you can see it more clearly written right there out of the 9th century BC. So you can see the Yod Hey Ua Hey, which pronounces the name Yahuwah. If you sound it out, it says Yahuwah. That's one way that we can tell that that's what it says. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to flip this bad boy over here. Bam! Look at that. Here's another stone with his name on it, Yod Hey Ua Hey. Another relic, artifact they found over there. Here's the other one. See, they're calling that a W there, but we know it's a Ua. It's not no W. They're just putting it on there to try to prove that they're right, saying it's Yahweh. Uh-oh, look at that little puppy. Little puppy showed up. Okay, so here we go. So see if you can pick up what I'm laying down on this. So here's vowels. And so according to Flavius Josephus, he says that the name of Yahuwah was 4 vowels. And they try to tell you that there's no vowels in Hebrew. But yet Yahuwah's name consists of 4 vowels. Who are they trying to fool? So we all know this. We were taught this in elementary school. A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y and W to be vowels, right? Of course, we all know that we write in the Latin script. We borrow the Latin script to write our English words with, right? But what's fascinating is in our English script, we have capital A's or uppercase, and we have lowercase letters. And the reason that happened was through the typeset. When the typeset came out, the typesetters, they had the uppercase letters that would start a sentence and lowercase. So that's how they had them in their typeset like that. That's why they call them uppercase and lowercase. But anyway, if you ignore the uppercase, the A, the E, the I, O, and U, and you look at the lowercase and how you pronounce them, A, E, I, O, U, U, Ya, and this, and of course, this would be Wa or U is what it really is. Okay, and so now we look at the tetragrammaton, which is Yod Hey Ua Hey, right? And so listen to the vowel sounds. Y, Y. You hear the I when you say Y? Y, I. Hear it? Y. H, hear the A in the H. So what are these? These are sound like capital letters, uppercase. Y sounds like an I. Y in the capital, uppercase. H would be uppercase. But listen to the vowel sound in the H. A sounds like an uppercase A, doesn't it? H, hear it? Okay, so then you have the U, that's uppercase. And then you have another H. So you hear the U, the vowel, H. Hear the vowel, the A. So here we got the I, Y, I, A, H, U, H, the A. See that? So I, A, U, A. but we don't pronounce them with the uppercase because in Hebrew, there's no such thing as uppercase and lowercase. There's just letters. And these letters pronounced like our small or lowercase letters are pronounced. So, yeah, ah. See, the A is not A, that's uppercase, it's ah. So the I makes the Y sound. When you put I and A together, it's ya. So we say ya, ah, hear the A, ya, ooh, that's a small U. U's uppercase, ya, ooh, that's lowercase, ah, that's lowercase a. It's a lowercase a, ah. So ya, when I and A are put together, is ya, ooh, ah. So when we pronounce the tetragrammaton using lowercase vowels, we get the pronunciation of his name. Ya, ooh, ah. Ya, ooh, ah. Ya, ooh, ah. Ya, ooh, ah. That's how the Assyrians wrote down how they heard the captives, the Yehudim who were captives during their captivity, Babylonian captivity, is how they heard them pronouncing the name of their Elohim. Yah, ooh-ah. And that's how they wrote it down. Yah, ooh-ah. Okay, to be the sound of their mighty one. And so amazingly, over here in America, when you have, we have the state of Iowa. And so when you put the I and the O together, okay, it's the same thing as you put the I and the A together and it sounds like ya, it's the same thing. The I and the O together sounds like ya, same thing. So yo, you could say yo. They say it says yo, but O that would be an uppercase sound. So it's ya, ooh, ah. Iowa says ya, ooh, ah. American Indians knew what his name was, and Iowa was named after him. You see that? So that right there shows you how easily that you can prove what his true name is, just using the tetragrammaton. All right. So remember, it's the lowercase vowel sound. So in this book here, The War of the Jews by Flavius Josephus, of course, this has been, translated and everything. So they're using different, words than I'm sure was in his original writing, but it still gives us the information we need. See down here at the bottom in the yellow, it says, wait a minute here. There we go. It says, a mitre also of fine linen encompassed his head, speaking of the high priest, which was tied by a blue ribbon, about which there was another golden crown, in which was engraved the sacred name. It consists of 4 vowels. It consists of 4 vowels. So this man, who was a first century historian, actually laid eyes on it. He saw it with his own eyes and wrote it down, what he saw. And that's what he saw. So what he's doing here is he's describing the uniform of the high priest here. And it gets down to him describing the mitre, the hat that he wore. And so he said the name, the divine name was written on it, and it was 4 vowels. So how can they say that the Hebrew language doesn't have vowels. Boy, what a lie that is. I mean, will the hypocrisy ever end? Probably not. Okay, let's continue on here. So a restoration has taken place over the whole earth. This is another step forward. The key of knowledge has been within. Oh, wait a minute. I already read all that. Oh, okay. So where are we at? Okay. So at Exodus 31:18, we learn that on Mount Sinai, the Creator engraved 2 stone tablets with his finger and gave them to Moses. He engraved his name using 4 ancient vowels in Hebrew letters, Yod, He, He. That would be the tetragrammaton. This name is often represented by the Latin letters YHWH. The W originally was written as 2 V's put together. In Latin, they created the V to make the oo sound. And so by putting 2 V's together, it was ooh, okay? But later on, those 2 V's became known as a W, and it mutated, the sound mutated from ooh into wah, okay? And that's where the deception comes in. So in their original form, they appeared like Yod, He, He in the Hebrew text, okay, which would look like this. Okay, so this right here is the original form, and in the Latin, it's YHWH is what they show it, but it should be YHUH. Okay. This is the autograph of the creator of the universe. So Yahuwah used men to write his message to mankind in ancient primary Hebrew. The ancient Paleo Hebrew letters sound the same, although they look drastically different from the Aramaic script commonly seen today. Isaiah 34:16 admonishes us to seek the book or scroll of Yahuwah, and in that scroll we find Yahuwah's name written in the ancient Paleo primary Hebrew. How did we come to embrace the Babylonian script, the Aramaic? The house of Yehuda was taken captive to Babylon around 586 BCE. Upon their release after 70 years in captive, they brought back the Babylonian letter shapes, which we now refer to as modern Hebrew. About half the book of Daniel, one of the Babylonian captives, is written in the original Hebrew, and the rest in the Babylonian script, the Aramaic. Daniel was able to read the old script used by Yahuwah when the handwriting on the wall appeared, but the Babylonians could not read it. See Daniel chapter 5. About 400 BCE, the scribe Ezra also adopted the square form of Babylonian Hebrew that we see today. As scrolls would wear out, the scribes copied the scrolls in the newer Babylonian letter shapes for the general text, but one word was carefully preserved in the original form. When they came to the name, they carefully preserved the Paleo-Hebrew form Yod He He in its authentic script. This word is used at least 6,823 times in the Tanakh. Tanakh is an acronym for Torah, Tehillim, and Ketubim, or the instructions, the prophets, and the writings. We also know that the earliest copies of the Septuagint, or 70, translation into Greek preserved the Paleo-Hebrew for Yahuwah's name, whereas later copies used the Greek word kurios, which means Lord, to replace his name. By replacing it, they wiped it out. The Greek theos, which means deity, produces innovative terms such as God and God head. The Septuagint, or 70, the 70 transliterated the spelling of Yahusha, King James Version, to Joshua, into the Greek letters Iesous. So remember what I said? The IA, the IE, and the IO together makes the Yah sound. Okay. For the successor of Moshe, those who rely on this as evidence that it is acceptable to allow the Greek form to define the original Hebrew are simply moving the error further into the past and not recognizing it as a corruption. This is a method of deception called casuistry. The Greek alphabet is unable to convey the correct sounds of certain Hebrew letters because it has no SH sound, sh, and no letter Y. The third commandment, they used an I instead of the Y. The third commandment in Exodus 27 declares we are not to destroy his name or cast it to ruin. Yet, by denying or avoiding Yahuwah's name, in the name of his son Yahusha, both Yehudism and Christianity have done exactly that, breaking the third commandment. It's a direct violation of the third commandment, folks. While in Babylon, the house of Yehuda was enslaved. They heard the Babylonians using the name in disrespectful ways, profaning it. To help prevent this from happening, those in leadership put into effect a ban against pronouncing Yahuwah's name, declaring it to be ineffable. By never saying the name, it quickly became unknown to even the Yehudim. This ban is completely contrary to Scripture. Yahuwah commands us over and over again in Scripture to utter, proclaim, and lift up his authentic Hebrew name. It's of paramount importance to understand that if we continue to use counterfeit names or devices, you see that word device? That's the clue to what they've done right there. Counterfeit names or devices for the Father and his Son, we will not be in true worship, nor truly know the one we serve. We will leave ourselves open for the enemy to step in as the author of confusion, and we will be deceived. Yahusha mentioned that they had taken away the key of knowledge in Luke 11:52, but he was going to restore it again. Okay. We find in Genesis 4:26 that Yahusha's name began to be called upon and continued to be called upon during the first temple period when the house of Yehuda was taken captive to Babylon. The pagan Babylonian influences took a firm grip on their hearts and minds. In our modern translations, we see the result of this ban of ineffability in the fact that Yahuwah's name has been entirely omitted and replaced with titles or terms which can apply to any pagan deity. These are devices, folks, almost 7,000 times, because the ineffability of the name, that means you're not allowed to speak it out loud, of the name is not sound doctrine. The new translation you are holding restores our Father's name and that of his Son by using the original Paleo-Hebrew script. It is found on the great Isaiah scroll among the Dead Sea Scrolls, which actually it was found entirely intact, by the way, which is now on display in the Shrine of the Book over in Israel. Many ancient artifacts prove its authenticity, such as ostracons, seals, lamps, stone reliefs, and coins. A lot of the artifacts that I just shared with you on share screen reveals his true name. Don't forget, people say, well, how are you so sure that that was his name? It just right there in the BY, open that up to page 10 and show them artifacts. If they want to see more, just Google it. It'll come up. Many ancient artifacts prove its authenticity, such as, by replacing the true name into the text that was originally written, we have done what has not been done since the first translation was made in the 2nd century BC. The first translation from Hebrew to Greek has been named the Septuagint and is abbreviated with the Latin letters for 70, LXX. So in Latin, letters have a corresponding number. So Proverbs 30, verse 4 asks us a weighty question. What is his name? And what is his son's name? Rabbinical Judaism calls Yahuwah by the substitute terms Hashem, Adonai, or Elohim, none of which are his name. They are titles or pronouns. In Christianity, they use Jehovah for the Father and the J-Man for the Son, both of which are not authentic. They are imprinted with the corruptions found in the Greek and Latin alphabets. The names can't be Jehovah or the J-Man because there is no letter J in Hebrew. The letter J appeared on earth during the 16th century. The Greek added the ending letter S to the name of Yahusha on the J-Man in order to make it masculine. They did that in order for you to know it was a masculine name. That's why they did this. Okay, so going back to these counterfeit names or devices for the Father and the Son. I first read that, it kind of struck me funny. And I started thinking, device. What in the world? Why are they calling it a device? And so I got real curious about that. And I went ahead and went into a dictionary and I looked it up. And I'm going to share with you what I found out by searching this out. And I used this American dictionary that I had laying around. It's rather large. It's called the American Dictionary of the English Language, Noah Webster, 1828. Okay. And see, it says Foundation for American Christian Education. This is what they use. So all the Christian verbiage is in this, is what this thing's all about. And so I grabbed this and I said, okay, I need to find this out, what's going on here. And so I looked it up. Before I go there, I just want to show y'all something that I find kind of funny. It's not really funny, but in a way it is. But look at here. You see that at the bottom of the page where I got that red arrow? It says Cretan. Cretan. You see that? Cretan, a name given to certain deformed and helpless idiots in the Alps. The derogatory remark, of course, but this is where the name Christian came from. Okay, and so that's basically the original definition of Christian. And so it's not a good thing to be called. Okay, so device. Go back to device. this really bothered me. So I thought, man, I'm going to look this up. Device, you know. I mean, I thought, a cell phone's a device, walkie-talkie's a device. And so I looked it up, and you can see it in here. See, it says device. Okay, see device. You see that word stratagem that I got underlined right there? All right. So device says that which is formed by design. So it's formed by design or invented. It's a scheme. A scheme, artificial contrivance, a stratagem, a project. Sometimes in a good sense, more generally in a bad sense, as artifices are usually employed for bad purposes. In a good sense, his devices against Babylon to destroy it. In a bad sense, he disappoints the devices of the crafty. They imagined a mischievous device. I was like, what? An emblem intended to represent a family, person, action, or quality with a suitable motto. It consists in a metaphorical similitude between the things representing and represented as the figure of a plow representing agriculture. It just goes on, Deceitful, full of devices. Deceitful, full of devices. Okay, so I'm like, what? And so I said, stratagem, devices, stratagems, deceitful, full of devices. I said, there's something going on here with the admission in certain translations that they replaced his true name with devices. And I'm like, boom, man, my brain's just throbbing, right? And so I know I'll look up stratagem then. And so I did. So I go in here and I look up stratagem, deceitfulness, full of devices. There's something going on here, right? So I looked up stratagem. You can see it's in here. Right there. I'll read it to you. So it says a stratagem, which is a device, is to lead an army in artifice, particularly in war, a plan or scheme for deceiving an enemy, any artifice, a trick by which some advantage is intended to be obtained. I'm like, what? An enemy, war, a trick by which some advantage is intended to be obtained? Who's the enemy? Who are they at war with? Who are they tricking? Why are they being deceitful, full of devices? And it dawns on me. Anybody who believes in Yahuwah or follows Yahuwah or worships Yahuwah is their enemy. And so they use these devices in their war against us in order to deceive us with these devices and mislead us in our quest to gain the knowledge of Yahuwah. And I'm like, this is mind-blowing stuff, mind-blowing stuff. So in some translations, in the preface here, they admit, see where it says start and it's in yellow, in regard to the divine name, YHWH, commonly referred to as the Tetragrammaton, the translators adopted the device used in most English versions of rendering that name as LORD, that's a device, in capital letters to distinguish it from Adonai, another Hebrew word rendered LORD, for which small letters are used whenever the two names stand together in the Old Testament as a compound name of God, which is a device. They are rendered sovereign LORD. It goes on and on and on, tells you all about it. You seeing it? Look down there at that yellow. Also, for the sake of clarity or style, nouns, including some proper nouns, are sometimes substituted for pronouns and vice versa. They replaced his true name with devices 6,823 times in the Tanakh. That blowed my mind. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And so these are tactics, these are tricks of warfare against their enemy. It must be us. So the true believers in Yahuwah are these translators' enemies. The ones that are in the know, they got you where they want you, man. Got everybody tricked with their stratagem and their devices, their deceitfulness. Listen to this. Like all translations of the Bible, made as they are by imperfect man, this one undoubtedly falls short of its goal. See that? It's like all translations of the Bible made by imperfect man, this one undoubtedly falls short of its goal. So they're letting you know that all the translations of the Bible fall short of the truth, mainly because of the use of these devices they're using against their enemies that they're warring with by the use of tricks and devices. It's part of their stratagem. So that was very revealing to me at the time, and it just kind of blowed me away, really. So what am I saying? I'm telling you that all these translations are floating around out there, and there's a ton of them, are using devices in order to trick you and to lead you away from the truth. And that's why it's very important that you get your hands on a reverse translation going back to the Hebrew text, closely as possible to the Hebrew text as you can get your hands on. It's imperative to your life, to living. It really is. Mind blowing. So then it goes on and it says, oh, that's, by the way, that was the NIV that I was showing you there. Yeah, the NIV. And I guess you all probably already know that this book, the writers of this book, removed 16 whole verses. They are omitted from it in the Netzarim writings, is where they are. But just to be fair, they do take the omitted verses that they've removed and they place them down in the footnotes and they tell you why they removed it. Okay. I guess that makes it okay in their mind. All right. So anyway, that's the NIV. I would avoid it like the plague. I would avoid all these translations. They use devices in order to trick you. And because you're their enemy, they're warring against you, man. It's pretty clear, really, what they're doing. So, a lot of people, they're hard-headed and they won't listen. Even when you show them things and tell them things, they don't care. They don't listen, and they just continue to make the same errors that they've always made, and they just kind of like ignore you or ignore the truth. Like Winston Churchill said that through each man's life, they'll sooner or later will stumble upon truth. And most men, after hearing truth, will stand up, brush off their britches, and walk away like they never heard anything. So that's basically what they do. He was right on with that. So the origin of the word God, we learned, which is another device. We learned that Yahuwah removed his name from our lips during the captivity in Babel. You can see that in Jeremiah or Yirmiyahu 44:26. The device, Lord, has been embraced to refer to Yahuwah. Another term or device, if you will, God, has come to replace the original Hebrew word Elohim. If we read Exodus 23:13 right now, with that script in mind, consider the following reference. So let's go there to Exodus 23:13 right now. Are we having fun yet? And in all that I have said to you, take heed and make no mention of the name of other mighty ones. Let it not be heard from your mouth. The Encyclopedia Americana 1945 edition says under the topic God, common Teutonic word for personal object of religious worship, formerly applicable to superhuman beings of heathen myth, like Hercules would be an example. On conversion of Teutonic races to Christianity, term was applied to supreme being. So by syncretism, they brought in all the different religions and traditions and customs throughout all the people, conquered people in the Roman Empire, brought it all in there, and they mixed it all up into a big pot, melting pot, so to control their kingdom more easily. 1 Thessalonians 5:22 warns us not to give the appearance of evil, and this would have to include what comes from our mouths. Guile is deceit. When we speak guile using replacement names or use titles in place of his name, we are breaking the third commandment and giving the appearance of evil in our speech. We are circumlocuting, which is talking around the true name, but not really saying it. He knows who we mean is the common response Many say they don't use the name because they want to keep from offending people. They don't mind offending Yahuwah. He knows their heart. What a bunch of malarkey, man. Will the hypocrisy ever end? Oh, boy. L-O-R-D in Hebrew is Baal. Number 6, 24 and 27 reveals Yahuwah's name will be upon his people. What name would that be? The L-O-R-D? Again, in Genesis 4:26, we learn that men began to call upon Yahuwah's name. There is only one name given under heaven, Acts 4:12. In 1 Kings 18:24, we find that Elijah, or Eliyahu in Hebrew, called on the name of Yahuwah, while the pagans called on the names of their deities, Baal and Asherah. Clearly, there must be a distinction in what we call our Creator. Baal in Hebrew means L-O-R-D. Clearly, L-O-R-D is not the true name we should be calling upon. And Deuteronomy 28:10 reveals that all nations will see that we are called by Yahuwah's name. Are we called by Yahuwah's name? Yeah. You're Yehudim. What does Yehudim mean? Worshippers of Yah. So if you're a worshiper of Yah, then you are a Yehudim. Regardless if you're from the tribe of Yehuda or not. Revelations 22:4 reveals that Yahuwah's name will be on our foreheads. So what name do we want on or in our foreheads? Malachi 3:16 commands us to think upon Yahuwah's name. But historically, neither Judaism nor the Kirki have been thinking on his true Hebrew name. Kirki means church. I think it's Greek for church. Micah 4:5 reveals that we are to walk in Yahusha's name. In Psalms 83:16-18, Yahuwah commands us to seek his name. Psalm 72:17 tells us that Yahuwah's name will endure forever. But Judaism and the Kirki, or circus, the original term for a pagan place of worship, a pagan temple, have placed a stumbling block where his name is concerned. Not only have they both forgotten his name, but they have destroyed Yahuwah's name thousands and thousands of times in Scripture. The Hebrew term for the called out is the qual. And today we think of the assembly as well as a meeting place as a kirki, the Greek term for a pagan temple. Derived from the name of a witch, Circe, sometimes rendered Kirky in English. So it's really the name of a witch. It don't matter what the word is. If you name somebody after the word, it becomes a proper noun. Don't matter. Okay, it could be dirt. You name somebody dirt, they're going to put a capital letter on the front of that bad boy, an uppercase letter, and that's going to be a proper noun because you named that person dirt. See what I'm saying? Regarding praise and worship, we are told in 2 Samuel 7:26 that we are to magnify Yahuwah's name. But in reality, we have been magnifying unscriptural names and mere titles or devices that might apply to any generic, non-specific deity. Psalms 106:47 declares that we are to give thanksgiving to Yahuwah's name. But clearly, we've been given thanksgiving to foreign names. Psalms 29:2 says we are to esteem Yahuwah's name. Psalms 9:2 declares that we are to sing praises to Yahuwah's name. Isaiah 56:6 reveals that we are to love Yahuwah's name. Psalms 45:17 tells us that every generation is to remember Yahuwah's name. And Exodus 3, verse 14 and 15 declare that his memorial name to all generations is Yahuwah. Salvation is found in Yahuwah's name and that of his son Yahusha. Psalms 54:1, Joel 2:32, and Acts 2:21, and Acts 4:12. Clearly, we are to call on Yahuwah's name and the name of his son for salvation. Are we to use counterfeit names or common titles when we pray for redemption? Using a personal name is a matter of identification. Pronouncing a person's name as well as we can is a sign of respect, isn't it? Yes, it is. Men have hidden, disguised, and corrupted and substituted the name of our Creator. Jehovah and the J-man are of recent origin and could not be his Hebrew name. So look, people, using a personal name is a matter of identification, okay? It identifies who we're talking about. So as short and minute as a name may be in context, a story, or a conversation, it's extremely important in that it identifies the subject matter or who it is that we're talking about. Without the name, the proper identification piece, we're clueless of who or what or where the story's all about. If the story is about James, you can't replace his name with Steve, because then the story would be inaccurate and false. If Robert committed murder, you can't say to replace his name with Jeff and say that Jeff committed the murder, because then you would execute an innocent man because you replaced his name. If you went to bed with your spouse and you called your spouse by a different name while making love to them, they'd probably throw you out of the bed and lock the door. That's how important a name is. You can't replace somebody's name with another name. That's total falsehood. So the name Jehovah, instead of Jehovah, the name appeared as Iehoua in the Geneva translation. Now, the Geneva translation is the translation that the Puritans brought over from England. They didn't bring the KJV. They brought the Geneva. They were against the KJV, basically because it was copied so closely to the Latin Vulgate. That's what they were trying to get away from, was the influence of the Latin Vulgate. And they just really hated the KJV. So the Puritans actually brought the Geneva translation to America when they came over here. And in the first printing of the KJV, in subsequent printing of the KJV, the letter J began to be used for the first letter of proper nouns that begin with the letter I. So in the KJV 1611 translation, the very first copy, there was no J's. James, J-man, anything start with a J, Jeremiah, all began with an I. Now, I can show it to you. Hang on a minute. Here's a copy of the King James, 1611. See it? 1611 King James Version. This is actually has the Apocrypha in it. That right in the middle. Why did the first copy of the King James have the Apocrypha in it? Right in the middle. Because it was laid out under the same format as the Latin Vulgate was, which also had the Apocrypha stuck in the middle between what they called the Old Testament and the New Testament. So here's Job. Look at Job, the book of IOB. Yeah, there ain't no J there in Job. There's an I. You see it? There's no J in this book because J didn't exist. There was no J. Look at this. Is talking about Judah's marriage and Joseph is fold. Look at here. Judah, marriage is an I. And over here, Joseph is fold. Look, Joseph is an I. There's no J in this book. J did not exist, folks. So you can go on and on and on through here. You'll never find a J. I'm trying to find the J man in here and how they spelt the J man. If I can find it real quick, find you one. Even Jews was with an I-E-W-E-S. There was no J even. Oh, here it is. Here's one for you. And see right there above my finger? See the J man, verse 46, and when I-E-S-U-S. See that? So there was no J. So pretty much tells you the story right there. So there was no J. There's no J in that 1611 version because it wasn't invented yet. So that it had an I rather than a J. Okay, so the J began to be used for the first letter of a proper noun or name, and that began with the letter I, and at the beginning of sentences. The letter J is but a few hundred years old. What's startling, though, is this. When Jehovah is broken down, we have Jehovah, with the J-E replacing his shortened poetic name, Yah, and Hova is referenced in Strong's exhaustive coordinates as word H1943 and means lay waste, destruction, or ruin. When we speak the hybrid name Jehovah, we are in essence saying, Yah, he is ruin. Another perspective, you want to see that? We can see it. Let's look at it. For those of you who don't have the Strongs, or maybe you don't know how to use the Strongs. So H would mean Hebrew. It's a Hebrew word. So Hebrew 1943. Let's see if it says that. So Hebrews 1943, Hovav, another form for ruin or mischief. So there it is. Right there. See 1943, word 1943, Hovav, Hoval. Hovav, Wa, Va, Hova, Hova. Another form for 1942 means ruin or mischief. So up there in 1942, Hova, Hovav, from 1933, just keep taking you up there, don't it? In the sense of eager coveting, rushing upon, falling, desire, ruin, calamity, iniquity, mischief, mischievous thing, naughtiness, naughty, noisome, perverse thing, substance, very wickedness. See all that? Crazy stuff, man. I mean, it's mind blowing, right? Okay, so another perspective, perhaps closer to the truth, is how letters changed their sounds over recent centuries. The letter-shaped V we see used over 400 years ago in the old Latin shape that functioned as our modern U. So a V is supposed to say "oo." Note the word gladivis in its old form utilizes the V shape, gladivs, but it sounded like our modern letter U. Because of this distortion, the spelling Jehovah has been misunderstood to correctly understand the pronunciation. The J sounds like a Y, and the V sounds like an U. It's simply a diphthong, making the word really sound like Ya, U, Ah. So the ova portion would be improved for today by writing it Ua. This produces Ya, Ua, the transliteration, which is translettering of many words and names, is being better understood with these obstacles when these obstacles are removed. An early transliteration of the name Yahuwah into Greek used the letters I-A-O-U-E. It was Clement of Alexandria, a headmaster of the Didascalia, the catechetical school of Alexandria, Egypt, who first demonstrated a translettering effort for the pronunciation of the name using Greek letters I-A-O-U-E. The name J-Man has only been around for the last few hundred years. The J appeared on the planet less than 500 years ago. So clearly, we've been using a mutated form of the original name of our Messiah. The name Yahusha, Yah is our deliverer, was given to Joseph or Yusuf in a dream, not the name J-Man. Those who stubbornly cleave to the recent form J-Man and will not listen to reason must ask themselves, what does that mean for all those believers who never used J-Man prior to the 16th century? Ooh, boy, that's powerful. They usually try to tell you that backwards, don't they? They're trying to say, you mean that? What about all these people that have been immersed in the name of the J-Man? They're not delivered? But they never think about that. What does it mean for all those believers who never used the J-Man prior to the 16th century? There's been a whole lot more, hasn't there? A whole lot more. They never used the J-Man. They used Yahusha. They knew his name. Back in the first century, they knew his name was Yahusha. They all knew it. That was not a secret back then. They knew the name Yahuwah as well. Where's the respect for the names of the Almighty and his Son? The same respect that we demand for our own personal names. Yeah, you don't like people making fun of your name or calling you by a different name than what your parents gave you at birth, do you? No, you don't. You'd probably be ready to punch somebody in the nose if they called you by a different name, especially if it was your spouse in bed. Some feel they can call the Father and his Son by any name of their choosing, yet they feel that Yahuwah should have their name correct in the scroll of remembrance or the Lamb's scroll of life, whichever scroll it may appear in. Clearly, there is a double standard toward Yahuwah's name and that of his Son, Yahusha. Men are not endowed with the authority to choose whatever name they prefer to call upon for their salvation. They must submit to truth and build on what does not change. We are told in Isaiah 52:6 that Yahuwah's people will know his name. And in Revelations 3:8 warns us that we are not to deny his name. Yirmiyahu 10:25 reveals to us that Yahuwah will pour out his wrath on those who do not call on his name. Wow. It would be an act of rebellion to ignore these clear instructions. They are not suggestions. Zechariah 13:9 tells us that those who belong to Yahuwah will say, Yahuwah is the name of my Elohim. The traditions of our fathers have failed us in this regard. We are told in Revelations 2:13 that we are to hold fast to his name, but men have not preserved the truth. It has fallen in the streets. Why did the Prushim and the priests tell Yahusha's followers not to utter his name? Because they knew that when Yahusha's name was being uttered, that the Father's name was being uttered as well, because the Father's name is in his Son. See Exodus 23:21. All right, it's just powerful stuff yet. Oh, you better believe it. Look at all this information right here at your fingertips, folks. Mind-blowing, isn't it? We're just on page 13. Let's examine, excuses. Let's examine some of the excuses people use to reject the true name. Some declare that Yahuwah has many names. No, Yahuwah has one name and many offices, such as a healer, shepherd, redeemer, father, husband, protector, possessor of heaven and earth, and etc. Some claim that no matter what name they use, Yahuwah will know who they mean. This excuse boasts of prideful arrogance, implying that the creator of the Shemayim and the Eretz will just have to figure it out and deal with the terms we choose. It's as if we're naming him, yet we have no such authority. He'll have to take what we dish out and like it. Others say that the pronunciation of Yahuwah's name has been lost. Do we really believe, even for one moment, that Yahuwah is going to command us to call upon his name and then allow the pronunciation to be lost? Of course not. All we must do is sound off the letters, which we did on this board. Surely we can trust in the most used word in all of Scripture. The Dead Sea Scrolls have revealed many examples of the original letter form which the words of Yahuwah were written in. Some proclaim that Yahuwah's name is not found in the Brit Kadasha. But the reason we don't see Yahuwah's name in the Brit Kadasha is because it has been replaced. And it became policy to adopt alternate popular terms as substitutions for his real name. Titles are not names, and neither are devices. The Father's name, it's 4 vowels, as we just witnessed by a first century historian. and a bunch of artifacts that we just showed you. Now let's examine the pronunciation of the Father's name. A first century writer called Josephus tells us that the name consists of 4 vowels. I just showed you that in the War of the Jews. Commonly, we see the name in encyclopedias as YHWH. Those are Latin letters. These vowel letters stand for the Hebrew letters Yod, Hey, Uah, Hey. The Yod is the same as our letter Y. The Hey is the same as our letter H, and the Uah is often Wah, represented as the W, but is essentially the sound of U. The letter Hey appears as the 2nd and 4th letter. The Syrians heard and transcribed the proper transliteration of our Father's name as YA-U-A, pronounced as Yahuwah, Yahuwah. Having lived with the Israelites who had been taken into captivity by the Assyrians, their transliteration is then credible. The state of Iowa is said to be based on the name, handed down through the Native American tribes. These tribes were remnants of the explorers sent by Solomon to establish colonies and mine copper, tin, silver, iron, and gold. Concerning Josephus, the first century historian, we read in his book, Josephus's Complete Works, page 556, that he observed the priestly headpiece. On this headpiece, the Father's name consisted of 4 vowels. The first 2 vowel letters are Yod, Hey, and according to Strong's H3050, it is pronounced as Yah. We find an example of this shortened poetic form of Yahuwah's name in Psalms 68:4. And we're going to look that up again in Strong's, just so you know. We might as well. Let's look at it. So Psalms, that would be H3050 in Strong's, I mean. Is pronounced as Yah. So let's see it. H3050. See if it's in there. So Hebrews 30:50. There it is, 30:50, Yah. For 3068 and mean the same. Yah, the sacred name, Yah, the Lord most vehement names in IAH and JAH. So 3068. Yeah, Yah. They're using YAW, but they're saying it's pronounced Yah. Let me see what 3068 says. Pages are sticking together on me. 3068. No, that's Yova. Yova. Yeah, okay. So here it is. And down here in the yellow. See, YAHH, Yah. They're saying it's pronounced Yah, but they're using a W there. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so we find Yahuwah's name in Psalm 68:4 in the New King James Version. We find Yah, YAH, in Psalm 68:4, Isaiah 12:2, Isaiah 26:4, and Isaiah 38:11 in the New King James Version. Y-A-H. They finally admitted it. So we can see these letters are vowels even as they are used in English. When we say Y, we can hear the I sound. When we pronounce the H, we can hear the A sound because the H is silent, as seen with the name Sarah. Now we come to the third. I explained all that to you on that board. If you missed it, go back and rewatch it. When I flipped this board around, I talked about that. Now we come to the third vowel letter, ua, often erroneously rendered vav or wa, or way, vav or way. The ua is the vowel letter sound u. It is not pronounced as our letter W. It's not a wa, it's a u. Since the Hebrew alphabet does not have a letter to correspond to our W, the letter W first appeared in the 13th century. It should not be thought of as a double anything. It's simply a U. So now we have two symbols, Ya plus Ua. Ya plus U, Ya'u. The fourth letter of the name is the vowel letter He. Some believe that the ending of Yahuwah's name has an Ah and others an Eh. The tribe of Yehudah gives us a significant clue. The name Yehudah is spelled Yad He Ua Dalith He. If we remove the Dalith, which is a D, we find the four letters Yad He Ua He. Yehudah minus the D equals Yahuwah. Is it possible to find this truth in the Greek? Josephus Flavius Yusuf, born Yosef ben Mattatyahu, 37 CE to 101 CE, a Yehudai historian, confirms that our father's name consisted of four vowels, with the Ua having the U sound, which agrees with the Assyrian pronunciation Ya-U-A, and is pronounced Ya-U-A. Strong's 3068 renders Yahuwah's name as Jehovah, which is inaccurate. Don't forget, Strong's is based on the King James Version. So you got to be aware of that as well. Checking H3050, we find out his shortened poetic name, Yah, refers us right back to H3068, which they rendered as Yea or Yah, but Yah is correct, not Yea. Yea is an alteration. The Yea spelling is the result of the Masoretes who used alternative vowels from another word, Adonai, in order to keep the name of Yahuwah concealed from the masses, thus perpetuating the ban of pronouncing the name out loud. The vowel pointing by the Masoretes cannot be trusted because of their intention to hide the name of our Father, Yahuwah. The vowels they used were intended to direct the reader to say Adonai instead of what was written. It was to cue the reader to not pronounce the name. In the name Yahusha, Yah was changed to Yeh, which hides the connection with the name of the Father in Exodus 23:21. For further confirmation, we read in the Stramata, verse 6, by Clement of Alexandria. The mystic name of the four letters which was affixed to those alone to whom the Aditum was accessible is called Iaoue, which is interpreted who is and shall be. And Aditum was the innermost sanctuary of an ancient Greek temple. How then does Ahaya or I am fit into our understanding of Father's name? At Exodus 3:14 we read, Ahaya Asher Ahaya, and he said, this shall you say to the children of Yisrael, Ahaya has sent me to you. Ahaya Asher Ahaya means I will be who I will be. When Father spoke Ahaya Asher Ahaya, he was speaking of himself in the first person, because only he could say I will be. Whereas when he reveals to his people that his name is Yahuwah, he is speaking in the third person. Yahuwah is the name we are to know, declare, and worship through the name Yahusha, which means Yah is our deliverer. He identifies himself exclusively by this one name. Yahusha clearly tells us in John 17:26 that he had declared his Father's name to the people, and since we are Yahusha's body, we are to do the same. Colossians 1:18. How foolish to think that the head, Yahusha, the head of the body, Yahusha, would call his Father Yahuwah, but his body, which is us, would call our Father Lord, God, or Jehovah. Makes no sense, does it? Again, how can Yahuwah's name be Jehovah and the Son's name be the J-man, since there is no J in Hebrew? The Apostle John is really Yahuchanan. At John 5:43, Yahusha tells us that he came in his Father's name. He came in the authority of Yahuwah and carries this name in his own. Jeremiah or Yirmiyahu 23:25-27 tells us that lies have caused Yahuwah's people to forget his name for Baal, or Lord. Many faulty interpretations have been propagated through the leadership in both Judaism and Christianity. Not only have Judaism and Christianity replaced the names of the Father and his Son, but they have even changed the original Paleo-Hebrew names of the prophets in order to conceal Yahuwah's name, because this name is embedded in the original names of several prophets. An example of this is found in the name of the prophet known as Jeremiah. In Paleo-Hebrew, his name contains the shortened poetic form of the Father's name, Yah, and should have been transliterated as Yirmiyahu. See any coordinates. Notice that it ends with Yah. The word Isaiah should be rendered Yashayahu. Notice the ending IAH in these two names. Clearly, these prophets would not recognize their own names as they are found in our modern-day English scriptures. The Son's name. Are we learning anything yet? I think so. This is very deep, isn't it? All this is in the preface of your BYNB. So I don't know how y'all can ask the questions that you ask over and over and over again when all the information's right here. Just read this preface about 10 times, and you'll think you're a genius, because you'll know all the answers to all them questions that everybody keeps asking. Hopefully y'all are seeing now, that all this information is right here in your hands. The Son's name, Hebrews 13:8 tells us that Yahusha is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So do we really believe that he has changed his name from Hebrew to a Greco-Roman English name? Of course not. And we learn from Philippians 2:9 that his name is above every name. Would that include his father's name? Nope, it wouldn't, and here's why. Again, Exodus 23:21 tells us that the Father's name is in his Son. The Father and his Son share the shortened poetic name Yah. Acts 4:12 tells us there's no other name by which we can call, which we can be delivered. The name is a Paleo-Hebrew name, Yad He Uashin Ayin, Yahusha. This script is read from right to left, and notice that the first three vowel letters are exactly the same as the Father's name, Yahu. Next, we have the letter Shin, which is SH, sh. And finally, the Ayin, which is essentially silent, but is represented by a rough breathing sound in the back of the throat. Hebrew is read and written from right to left. So the Greco-Roman and English name, the J-man, would have been unknown to Yahusha. The J-man has no meaning in Hebrew, whereas Yahusha means, I am your deliverer. The one who hung on the stake or the tree for us was named Yahusha, not someone named J-man. Most believers readily accept the free gift of his finished work at Golgotha, but refuse to acknowledge him by his Hebrew name, which was given to him by his father, Yahuwah. Clearly, we are to call on his Hebrew name for salvation, but regretfully, that has not been the case in the Kirky or the church. IESU was the Latin form from 391 to the 16th century. Arabs were influenced during the 7th century by this form and refer to Yahusha as Isa, I-S-A. Isa, taken back into Hebrew, becomes Isu, the name of Jacob's brother Esau, a word meaning hairy. He's hairy. And he's a hairy dude. If we take a closer look at the original Hebrew name for Joshua, we find that it is the clearest example of how our Mashiach's name is spelt and pronounced. If you look under Strong's H3091, spells Joshua's name in Hebrew as Yad He Uashin Ayin. This is exactly how we spell Yahusha's name today. Some add another Ua after the Shin, which is okay. If you compare Yarusha at second Kings 15:33. Here's something very enlightening. If we look up the name J-man in Strong's G2424, it is sounded out as Ezeus, but refers us right back to Joshua in Strong's H3091. Yehoshua. For further proof, we go to Acts 7:45, where we find the name Joshua in our English scriptures. But what's amazing is that it is the exact same number in Strong's G2424, which is used for the name J-man. Names are always transliterated from the source language to the target language by their sounds. Names have meanings, but it is not proper to translate them. In short, names are transliterated by the sound of each letter, no matter what the alphabets used may be, just as our own name in English will always sound the same, no matter what foreign alphabet it may encounter. My name's Mark in every language on the planet. What do we do with the alternative spelling, such as Y apostrophe S-H-U-A? Yeshua. Yeshua or Yeshua. Some claim that Yeshua or Yeshua is the shortened Aramaic form for his name. Others declare that Yeshua is a form of Yeshu, an unscriptural acronym for Yahushua's name, and stands for Yimak Shemol Yuzikro, meaning may his name be blotted out. So we can see why this would be a name that the enemy would like us to use, because every time we speak Yeshua, we are in essence declaring that his name be blotted out. The form Yeshua leaves out the ua, which is the vowel letter sound u. 2 Timothy 2:15 tells us we are to rightly divide the word of truth. So what has been hidden or whispered in secret is now being shouted from the rooftops. We learn at Acts 9:15 that Shaul or Paul was to bear Yahushua's name before the nations. It is impossible for Paul to have declared the Greco-Roman English name J-Man. Shaul declared the name of Yahushua, and as his body, so must we. Shaul was sent to arrest and kill those who called upon the true name. Following his own conversion to the truth of the name by Yahushua himself, and he appeared to him as a light on the road to Damascus and blinded him, you may recall that. He used it boldly and was stoned several times for using it. They wouldn't have stoned him if he had used the name of error we have inherited, the J-Man. They wouldn't have cared anything about him saying the J-Man. In conclusion, we must make a choice. How long do we waver between two opinions? If Yahuwah is Elohim, then serve him. If Baal or Lord is your Elohim, serve him. Do we call our Creator and his Son by unreal names and common titles, which Rabbi Judaism and Christianity have traditionally deceived us with? Don't forget what deceitfulness is. A bunch of devices. Or do we return to the ancient Paleo-Hebrew written by the finger of Yahuwah? If Scripture is the final authority in our lives, then the answer is very clear. Scripture reveals Yahuwah and Yahushua's correct identity through the Paleo-Hebrew names, and it's upon this foundation that we must stand firmly. Yahushua revealed that he is Al Shaddai at Revelations 1:8, explaining the mysterious use of the identity marker Aleph Tav throughout the Tanakh. Remember I showed you that? That's right here. Identity marker. The ancient Paleo-Hebrew and the Aramaic. The Aleph and the Tav. The initials of Yahuwah is what that is. When you see that in Scripture after a verse, that's telling you that it's Yahushua who is speaking. That's what that means. Explaining the mysterious use of the identity marker, the Aleph and the Tav throughout the Tanakh. Yahuwah is one, and he became flesh and dwelt among us in the form of a man. The name is the key of knowledge, which has been withheld from us, and it will unlock the revealed word to any who accept it, giving understanding and wisdom to the simple. Yahuwah is one. He could be a man in the flesh, robed in the flesh, and sitting on his throne, filling the universe, filling the arets under every rock in the micro world, at the ends of the universe, everywhere, all at once, all the time. Yahuwah doesn't have to leave one place to go to another place. He's already there. His entire creation was created within himself. And he's in everything, and everything is in him. Otherwise, you couldn't exist. If you're outside of Yahuwah, who is the premier of life, there's no existence. That's not existence. That's the outer darkness. That's how he's everywhere at once all the time. That's how he can be the Father, the Son, the Ruach HaKodesh, and still be everywhere else all at once as well, all at the same time. He is magnificent, man. He's majesty, sits on high. He's not a joke. He's not something that you can describe or define or box in or control. He is Yahuwah Al Shaddai. He's omnipotent, omnipotent, and omniscient, all at the same time. Yeah, chew on that one. All at the same time. The name is the key of knowledge. Yahuwah has revealed his identity through the Aleph and the Taw of revelation. The very idea there is a key validates that there is something to be unlocked. That would be the Besorah, the message of Yahusha. He said he would be with us, and only one being is capable of being in more than one place at once all the time, and that is Yahuwah. Now you know who the Father is and who the Son is. This book is his message to all mankind, to teach us how to love him and love one another. Wow, are we learning anything yet? I think we are. So the message of love. The Besorah is the message given to prophets selected by the Creator being Yahuwah to all mankind. This message is both a record of specific events and a revelation of the plan of redemption and restoration. The original parents of all mankind were perfect, created to live in Eden, and they were deathless. They were immortal. They were deceived by a fallen creature that brought doubt into believing the word of Yahuwah, and so they failed to believe what he had spoken. Through this error, death entered the world. Life and death are on display throughout the entire message, and Yahuwah calls out to all men to choose life by believing in his word and proving they believe it by obeying him. This choice is made by trusting in his word, the message, the Hebrew Besorah, and living by it according to the covenant given to a chosen people he selected, Yesharal. And that is so true. So if by believing in his word and proving they believe it by obeying him. So people that are disobedient and they teach lawlessness, they tell you that the Tanakh is irrelevant and abolished and annulled, and you don't have to obey that Minod Yahuwah of the Old Testament anymore because we're living in the age of grace. Just give me your money and you'll receive grace. Okay, these people don't believe in Yahuwah. They don't believe in Yahuwah at all. If you believe in Yahuwah, you're going to be obedient to his commandments, instructions, because you fear him. If you don't really believe in him, then you don't really care about being obedient to his instructions. You want to do what you want to do. Do what you will. It's okay. You don't have to obey anything. Just go do what you want. Live your life, man. He's going to forgive all your sins at the end anyway. That's why he came, in order to be perfect and obey the law so you wouldn't have to. Don't you know that? Go live your life, man. Party on, dude. The earth is a big party, man. Get on board, dude. Don't be a drag, man. Live and let live, brother. What you is, man. This translation is different. Former translations, such as the 1611 King James Version, what I just shared with you, were done by scholars who believed the earth was flat. Oh, we have a bunch of people believing that today, too. And the sun circled it. Galileo went on trial in 1633 for his ideas about the earth circling the sun. Theologically, this doesn't matter. More importantly, the scholars held to the teaching of the church fathers and the poisonous wormwood of replacement theology. This will be discussed briefly at the end of this introduction. Whatever translation you may own, check Mark 16:17 or Matthew 26:17 and Mark 14:12. If it reads, on the first day of unleavened bread, they use the KJV for their framework. You can't look for a place to observe Passover when it's already happened. Okay, so what this is talking about, we'll catch an example of this here. Somewhere. What'd I do with it? Oh, here it is. So Matthew 26:17, there is an error in the good old King Jimmy. Oh, this is a non-errant. This is inspired. Oh, it is? Then there should be no errors in it, right? So there you go. You see that? You see that? Matthew 26:17 right there. Now, the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the disciples came to the J-man, saying unto him, where wilt thou that we prepare for thee to eat the Passover? Well, guess what, folks? On the first day of unleavened bread, the Passover was over. They're a day late and $1 short. So that's an error in that translation. Here's another error. It's found in Luke 23:43. And Yahusha said unto him, verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise. You see that comma after thee? It's out of place. It should be after day. So it should say, verily I say unto thee, today, shalt thou be with me in paradise. And the reason we know that is because when he appeared, when it's his resurrection, and he appeared to Miriam from Magdala, he told her, don't touch me, for I have not ascended to the Father yet. Right? Yeah, he did. So that means that he'd been in the earth, the heart of the earth, for 3 days and 3 nights. And so was the thief, the robber, that he promised that he would be in paradise with him. Was also in the grave. And he's still in the grave waiting for the resurrection, either the first or the second. Who knows? Then the other one in Mark 14:12 is just basically the same one that was in Matthew right there. And the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover, and the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover, his disciples said unto him, Where wilt thou that we go and prepare that thou mayest eat the Passover? And so on the first day of unleavened bread, they wouldn't be killing the Passover. The Passover would already been over. They missed it by 24 hours. While we're on the KJV, I'll show you one more thing real quick here. This is found in Acts 12, verse 4. And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison. See up there where I got that red line? And delivered him to fear quantities of soldiers to keep him intending after Easter. See that? After Easter, to bring him forth to the people. See Easter there? After Easter, I got underlined there in red. That's the only place in scriptures you'll ever see that. And it's only appears once in all of scriptures. And it's only found in the KJV. That's it. It's the only place you'll ever see that. That was injected there. Okay. It doesn't belong there. That should say Passover, not Easter. All right. So there's another error. And that one there is deliberate. That's not really an error. That's a deliberate substitute or replacement of the word Passover with Easter to promote their ideology, if you will. Okay. So the first day of unleavened bread is the 15th day of the first moon, and Passover lambs were killed on the 14th. There is no word day used here, and the word protos should read prior to unleavened bread, not after unleavened bread. More importantly, the personal name of the Creator is deleted from most English translations, substituted with the word or device, Lord, and in some cases, the word or device, God. In this version, the true name is restored in its original form, speaking of the BYNV, in the places it occurs in the inspired text, which is the Hebrew text. And other names are more accurately transliterated, eliminating the distortions caused by the Greek and Latin alphabets. Greek terms such as Genesis and Exodus are accompanied by the authentic Hebrew terms. Hebrew is the Lashon Kadesh, or set-apart tongue. So restoring the names without distortion enables the reader to experience the richness, the purity, and authenticity that flows from the unfiltered, inspired words in the Creator's mind. The key of knowledge is the personal name of the Creator, and using it unlocks the message that would otherwise remain sealed from our comprehension. A name uniquely identifies who is being spoken of. The first known translation of Yahuwah's word was made from Hebrew into the Greek language between 285 to 246 BCE for a Ptolemaic king at Alexandria, Egypt. That translation is often referred to as the Septuagint, or the Latin designation LXX, or 70. Septuagint is Latin for 70. as traditionally it was assumed that 70 scribes were used to translate the Torah, which is the 5 books of Moses, into Greek. When they did so, they left the name of the Most High Elohim unmolested, as this translation also does. So what you are holding in your hands is one of the few times since the 70 that a translation has been made that leaves the original name as it appeared in the Hebrew. Lies inherited from our fathers will be overcome with truth. The script in its historical context. An alphabet may be different than that of the language it conveys. You are reading English words, the language, but those words are written in Latinized letters. A word may be Hebrew, such as Shabbat, but is written here in Latinized letters. When the Yehudim were taken into Babel, they adopted a foreign alphabet, Aramaic. It is misnamed modern Hebrew. The Hebrew alphabet is mistakenly called Phoenician. The original autograph of the creator is best shown using the ancient primary letters he used to write his name with his finger at Sinai. And that form looks like this, Yad He Ua He. The world has called this letter style Phoenician, not realizing that the label Phoenician was bestowed upon the Israelites by Greek writers, a word meaning date palm in Greek. The word phoenix, or Latin phoenix, means the same thing, and the latter Roman Empire converted this word into Punic when they were battling their Israelite enemies at Carthage. The Israelites have been called many things by the land empires over the ages, such as Carthaginians, Parthians, Scythians, but as Phoenicians, they are best known as a sea-bearing people. The Israelites dwelled in the land given to them by Yahuwah. However, they were more of a sea-bearing empire than a land empire. So when you see other sources describing the script seen in this book as Phoenician, you can better understand that this term applies to the Israelite empire made up of many colonies. Herodotus coined the word Phoenician. The Israelites made alliances in Tyre and Sidon, causing the northern 10 tribes to fall into Baal worship. And for this, they were scattered into the nations by the Assyrian Empire in 722 BC. The Israelites called the land Canaan before they conquered it, and a small part of it was known as Philistia, which the Romans later adopted into their form, Palestine. It is commonly thought that the Israelites adopted their Aleph Beth, or alphabet, from the residents of Canaan, Byblos, Tyre, and Sidon. But the reverse is the case. The Semitic language and 22-lettered alphabet was common to all descendants of Shem. Shem gives us the term Shemite, losing the SH sound by passing through the Greek language and becoming Semite. So what is the message? The Besorah is the answer to mankind's oldest mystery, the purpose of life. What is the purpose of life? To learn to love. Active love is serving from beginning to end. The Creator has pleaded, searched hearts, and repeated himself beyond measure for mankind to return to him. Who has ears to hear him? He said, love me and guard my commandments. The word, light, wisdom, living water, and his covenant are all one and the same thing, the Torah of Yahuwah. The Torah teaches us how to love. Without love, creation has no purpose. The Mashiach of Israel, Yahushua of Nazareth, told an elder of Israel in Yehukanan chapter 3. If you do not believe when I spoke to you about earthly things, how are you going to believe when I speak to you about the heavenly things? And no one has gone up into the heaven except he who came down from the heaven, the Son of Adam. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Adam be lifted up, so that whosoever believes in him should not perish but possess everlasting life. For Elohim so loved the world that he gave his only procreated Son, so that everyone who believes in him should not perish but possess everlasting life. For Elohim did not send his Son into the world to judge the world, but that the world through him might be saved. He who believes in him is not judged, but he who does not believe is judged already, because he has not believed in the name of the only procreated Son of Elohim. And this is the judgment, that the light has come into the world, and men loved the darkness rather than the light, for their works were evil. For everyone who practices evil hates the light and does not come to the light, lest his works should be exposed. But the one doing the truth comes to the light, so that his works are clearly seen, that they have been wrought in Elohim. And then First Yehukanan, it says, and he himself is an atoning slaughter for our sins, and not for ours only, but also for all the world. And by this we know that we know him, if we guard his commands. The one who says, I know him, and does not guard his commands is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whoever guards his word, truly the love of Elohim has been perfected in him. By this we know that we are in him. The one who says he stays in him ought himself also to walk, even as he walked. Beloved, I write no recent command to you, but an original command, which you have had from the beginning. The original command is the word which you heard from the beginning. Then it goes on to say that Torah is the original command. David, Dawid, or Daud, a brief explanation. A contemporary English spelling of this great ruler is David, and often people say David or Dawid, thinking this is a more modern Hebrew posture. Modern Hebrew is different in some aspects from the authentic 22 letters. The sixth letter, Ua, has morphed into Wa. The influences of foreign languages have caused this letter to become a Vav, but it is simply a U, U. The name is spelt with three letters, Delith, Ua, Delith, or literally dude in our English. The Hebrew letters Delith, Ua, Delith will be transliterated Daud to suggest the pronunciation Daud. Then on page 18 it says, the name Yahuwah is associated with his word, and he guards his covenant. The menorah is physically a light with 7 branches. The 7 lamps can be abstractly thought of as his eyes, as we contemplate his perspective of how all mankind should live. The menorah also shows us the 7 festivals, which represent the process of redemption. These annual observances are shadows of how Yahuwah is redeeming his bride, Yesharal, not the church, not the Kirky. The book you are holding is true history. As you read it, you are actually reading the very thoughts of your Creator. Take his heart into yours as you read. He wants you to know the truth and how much he has done for you. And that's it. There's the preface of the BYNV. And then I just want to point out to you that there is a glossary in the back. There is actually a small writing back here that I really want to read for you real quick. It's just very short. It speaks here. It talks about the Aleph and the Taw. Okay, so the Aleph and the Taw is an identity mark. Okay. So an identity mark. You see that mark. So this identity mark represents Yahuwah's name. Okay. It's really his initials. So the word of Yahuwah is one person. He uses the first and last letters of the Hebrew Aleph or alphabet in specific locations throughout the Tanakh to identify himself as the one that is speaking. These two letters remain a mystery to translators, who generally ignore them and what they mean. Some believe they should be understood as part of the syntax of the sentences, operating as modifiers. These two letters are not ET, but AT, Aleph, Taw. Hebrew is read right to left. The revelation of their meaning is provided at the beginning and ending of this book called Revelation. The main point is that these letters represent him, represent Yahuwah. These two letters are identity marks of the one speaking. All the time, it's been him who said he would be with us and to be strong and courageous. He came to be formed in the likeness of a man. Be still and know that he is Elohim. This is a partial listing of Hebrew or Ebrith transliterations and definitions. Meanings are determined by the context of the word. How a word is used in a sentence helps us discuss how to apply the proper definition. A picture can mean more than one thing. A Hebrew words can too. At the end of this glossary is a letter comparison chart. The context supplies a word's meaning in a sentence. A common error of many students and teachers is to consult a concordance and select a definition on a whim. The meanings a word may have must not be applied mindlessly without taking the context into account. The context is everything, folks. It's everything. Glossary. This is a study in itself and will enlighten your understanding of the restored words as you read. Transliterations and definitions. So you get back here into this glossary in the back, and it'll help you learn Hebrew words that you find within the pages of the scriptures. Okay. And it explains it to you. It just, there's quite a bit of these words that you'll find back here that'll help you out, such as Kohen, Hebrew word for priest. Nazarene, plural for the Natsar. The original followers of Yahusha were the sect of the Nazarene. Found in Acts 24:5. The word Nazarene means watchmen, guardians, also used to mean branches. We are branches of the teachings of the root or the vine, which is Yahusha. And so you have this nice little glossary back here to help you with Hebrew words and names. Especially the more frequent ones that you'll find within the pages of the BYNV. And then it goes on into some more writing here. On page 1216, how to engraft, Nazarene, a pledge. And I urge all of you to read here in the back if you haven't already. And if you have, you probably should do a refresher and reread it. It doesn't hurt. It wraps it up here by saying, love one another and learn to do the things that please Yahusha. The BYNV 2024, 6 inches by 9 inches and 8.5 inches by 11.5 inches. This is the bigger, you can see it over my shoulder over there, which is BYNV right about there. Looks like it's on fire. Large print edition. This translation is the intellectual property of Torah Institute, all rights reserved. See, it's a translation. Website, torahzone.net. Yahusha did not come to destroy his commandments. Yahusha came to destroy the works of the devil. And so that's a good way to end this study. And I want to look into that really quick. Yahusha did not come to destroy his commandments. Is there any evidence of that? Yeah, Matthew 5. And it's even in what they call the New Testament. So you can't run and hide, can you? It's not in the Tanakh or the Old Testament. It's in what you're calling the New Testament. So go to Matthew 5. Funny how people skip over this when they try to tell you that the 10 commandments have been annulled. Matthew 5, 17 through 20 says, do not think that this is Yahusha talking. Do not think that I came to destroy the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to complete. For truly I say to you, till the heaven and the earth pass away, one yod or one tittle shall by no means pass from the Torah till all be done. A yod is the smallest letter. A tittle refers to the turn, a horn, or a stroke within any individual Hebrew letter. Whoever then breaks one of the least of these commands and teaches men so shall be called least in the reign of the Shemayim. But whoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the reign of the Shemayim. For I say to you that unless your uprightness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you shall by no means enter into the reign of the Shemayim. Yeah, Torah ain't going nowhere, Jack. Pretty clear. And then it says, Yahusha didn't come to destroy his commandments. He came to destroy the works of the devil. So let's get a look at that. Where's that at? 1 John. So let's go to 1 John 3. 1 John 3, 4 through 10. Everyone doing sin also does lawlessness, and sin is lawlessness. And you know that he was manifested to take away our sins, and in him there is no sin. Everyone staying in him does not sin. Everyone sinning has neither seen him nor known him. Little children, let no one lead you astray. The one doing uprightness is upright, even as he is upright. The one doing sin is of the devil, because the devil has sinned from the beginning. For this purpose, the Son of Yahuwah was manifested, to destroy the activity of the devil, not to abolish his 10 commandments, but to destroy the activity of the devil. Everyone having been born of Yahuwah does not sin, because his seed stays in him, which is the Ruach HaKodesh, and he is powerless to sin. Powerless to sin. because he has been born of Yahuwah, born again as a spiritual being, no longer a fleshly being, but a spiritual being, born again of Yahuwah. In this, the children of Yahuwah and the children of the devil are manifest. That means revealed. Everyone not doing righteousness is not of Yahuwah. Righteousness is obedience. Unrighteousness is disobedience of his commands. Everyone not doing righteousness is not of Yahuwah, neither the one not loving his brother. I am the vine, you are the Nazarene. Baruch haba b'shem Yahuwah. Anaha gafanataha Nazarim. Yeah, hallelujah. So there you go. I think I'm going to stop right there. Been on for 3 hours and 51 minutes. So I think y'all getting the gist of this study. And so, just keep in mind that you want to get your hands on a good reverse translation back to the Hebrew. It's definitely a translation that restores the Hebrew name and the true name of your creator, your deliverer, your Messiah, so that you can call on the one name given among men which you must call upon to be delivered. It's only one name, and it's a Hebrew name, and we need to get it right. And that name is Yahusha, not the J man. That's a Greek name. It's actually pronounced Isus. So if you continue to want to call him by a Greek name, then, at least pronounce it correctly. Pronounce it properly. You're pronouncing it incorrectly when you say the J man. It's really Isus. So go ahead and say it correctly if you want to use that name. And at least pronounce it right. So anyway, I hope you see the importance of a good translation. And I hope you appreciate the information that's been given to you freely in the preface of this BYNV, especially for those of you who are holding it in your hand. And I want you to see that you can reference that and help you with your testimony and your, witnessing to others about the truth and about the true name and everything, that all the proof that you need to testify to them and give witness is right there in the preface of that BYNV. So use it. Read it 10 times, come very familiar with that information. And then you won't have any problem when somebody asks you, what makes you think that you know what the true name is? What proof do you have of it? How do you know this? How do you know that? Why are you saying this? Why are you saying that? It's all right there. If you make yourself familiar with that preface, they'll be thinking you're a scholar of all scholars, man. They'll think you're the theologians of all theologians. They might even be calling you a smart person. Who knows? So anyway, I hope all of you are picking up what I'm laying down on this study. And I think it's a really good study. And I think it should help a lot of us. It's amazing to me how many people you can ask, have you ever read the preface of that translation you're holding in your hand? And 99% of them will say no. Well, you can't say that now about the BYNV because I just read it for you. Okay? So. All right, man. That's a wrap on this evening's study. I appreciate all you being here. Thank you for everybody that came into the chat room and studied with us this evening. Thank you for being nice to each other. Thank you for paying attention to the study and reading along and loving each other, showing each other love. And appreciate all of you being here studying with me one-on-one on this Shabbat evening. I appreciate it more than you'll ever know. And don't forget about tomorrow. We'll be back on here on this exact channel. Sparking You is Yah, 3 words, right where you're at now. But it'll be a different time tomorrow. We're on at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is lunchtime on the East Coast. But it's 11 o'clock a.m. Texas time. And if you're out there on that West Coast, I'm not sure what time it is. But I do believe it's sort of early for you. So get up, make your coffee, and be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, man. And, come and join us. We have a lot of fun, lots of information being handed out, given to us by Yahusha. And it's all free, doesn't cost you a penny. It helps you keep obedient to the 4th commandment. And you get to spend a lot of time with Yahuwah and Yahuwah's people, his chosen. So the Nazarene will assemble tomorrow, 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we venture into our scriptural study group. So be there or be square. And remember to stay in love with Yahusha. So long, Nazarene, beloved of Yahuwah. So long, everyone. See you next week or see you tomorrow. Your choice. Peace, love, joy, and love to everybody. So long, folks.